Hi, I'm Emily, a determined single mom. Before I get into my story, don't forget to like and subscribe for more real-life tales. I always imagined my pregnancy surrounded by a loving family, but life had different plans. It was during my 7th month, typically a time when most expectant moms are nesting and finalizing baby preparations, that my world began to fall apart. "Emily, we need to talk about rent," my father said one evening, completely catching me off guard. "Rent?" I asked, confused and a bit scared. I thought I was staying here rent-free, especially with the baby on the way. My mother's voice was cold and firm. "We've reconsidered. It's only fair that you contribute financially if you're going to stay here." "But I can't afford rent right now," I pleaded, my hands trembling as they rested on my swollen belly. "I'm about to go on maternity leave, and you know Alex's dad isn't in the picture." "We can't just support you and a baby," my father said, his voice devoid of the warmth I once knew. "You need to be responsible, Emily." Tears welled up in my eyes. "Please, I promise I'll pay you back once I start working again. Can't we work something out?" Their faces were unmoved. "If you can't pay, you'll need to find somewhere else to live," my mother said firmly. Heartbroken and with no other choice, I packed my things. The next few days were a blur of tears and desperation until Sarah, a friend from college, reached out. "You can stay with me as long as you need, Emily. Don't worry about rent. Just focus on getting ready for the baby." Her kindness was a beacon in my darkest time. Moving in with Sarah felt like a breath of fresh air. Her small apartment became a sanctuary, a place filled with hope and laughter, so different from the coldness of my parents' home. We spent our evenings chatting about baby names and decorating a corner of her living room with baby Alex's things. "How could they just throw you out like that? It's unbelievable," Sarah often said, struggling to mask her frustration. "I don't know, Sarah," I would reply, trying to stay strong. "It hurts, but right now, all I can focus on is Alex and making sure he has a peaceful entrance into the world." As the countdown to Alex's arrival began, I found comfort in the little nest Sarah and I had created for him. It wasn't the support-filled pregnancy I had envisioned, but it was wrapped in genuine care and love. Something I hoped to give my son in abundance was love. The day Alex was born was the happiest of my life. As I held him for the first time, feeling his tiny fingers curl around mine, I knew I would do anything to protect him. The hardships of the past few months seemed to melt away, replaced by a fierce love and determination. Just a few weeks into motherhood, while I was still adjusting to sleepless nights and the constant demands of a newborn, my parents reached out. It was unexpected and honestly unwelcome. "Emily, we want to meet Alex." My mother's voice came through the phone, as if nothing had happened. "We're his grandparents, after all." "Why now?" I asked, my voice tight with a mix of anger and anxiety. "You kicked me out when I needed you most." "We were just trying to teach you responsibility," my mother replied, her tone suggesting this was supposed to be obvious. "We always had Alex's best interests at heart." "Best interests? You left your pregnant daughter homeless." "I don't trust your intentions now," I snapped back, cradling Alex a little closer. The conversation ended abruptly with my mother's parting words. "We'll see. He's our grandson." As news of their sudden interest in Alex spread through the family, reactions were mixed. My Uncle John called one afternoon, his voice filled with concern. "Emily, your parents are really upset. Maybe you should let them see Alex. It might mend things a bit." "I can't just forget what they did, Uncle John. How can I trust them with Alex when they showed no mercy to us?" I argued. "Family is supposed to forgive," he countered, echoing the sentiment of several relatives. Amidst the family pressure, Sarah remained my steadfast supporter. "You don't owe them anything, Emily. They should earn your trust first," she would remind me during our late-night talks after Alex had finally settled down. Their continued attempts to be part of Alex's life only deepened my resolve to protect him from their instability. One Saturday, they showed up unannounced at Sarah's apartment, causing an uncomfortable confrontation. "We have every right to see him," my father exclaimed, standing at the door with frustration evident in his stance. "You gave up those rights when you threw us out. Alex needs stability, love, and protection. All things you didn't provide when I needed them," I responded, holding the door firm while Alex napped quietly in the other room. As they left, their expressions mixed with anger and disbelief, I felt a twinge of guilt but knew I had made the right decision. Motherhood had taught me that protecting Alex was my top priority, no matter the emotional cost. In the weeks that followed, the family rift only deepened. Some relatives whispered about my ungrateful attitude, while others quietly commended my courage. Through it all, I focused on Alex, his smiles and needs providing the strength I needed to face each day. Despite the turmoil, I never regretted my decision. As I watched Alex grow, each milestone was a reminder of the life we were building together, just the two of us, a small but unbreakable family forged in the fires of adversity. Months after Alex was born, while rocking him to sleep one quiet night, I couldn't shake the feeling of injustice that gnawed at me. My parents' newfound desire to be doting grandparents after their harsh rejection was too much to bear. Silently, I felt a need to share our story, perhaps to warn others or find solidarity in shared experiences of familial betrayal. One evening, with Alex asleep in the quiet hum of the computer before me, I began to write. The words flowed, fueled by pent-up frustration and a desire for transparency. I detailed everything, from the joy of discovering I was pregnant to the shocking moment my parents demanded rent and eventually kicked me out, and their sudden change of heart once Alex was born. I hit post on the blog, sharing it not only on my personal social media pages, but also tagging my parents' workplaces, where they had built reputations as kind and understanding individuals. It felt like a necessary addition, a way to show the contrast between their public personas and private actions. The reaction was immediate and explosive. Shares, likes, and comments piled up as strangers and acquaintances alike expressed their shock, support, and sometimes their own stories of similar betrayals. "You did the right thing, Emily. People need to see this side of them," read one comment, echoing the sentiment of many. However, not all feedback was supportive. Tagging my parents' workplaces brought a tidal wave of controversy. "You shouldn't have brought their jobs into this. That's too far." A family friend messaged me privately, a sentiment shared by others who felt I had crossed a line. The family drama intensified when my Aunt Laura called, her voice trembling with emotion. "You've embarrassed them in front of their colleagues. Was that really necessary? They're upset and considering legal steps against you." "I'm sorry for the tagging. That might have been a step too far," I replied. "But I'm not sorry for sharing my story. They needed to be held accountable." I replied, my voice firm yet weary from the emotional toll. Days later, amidst growing public scrutiny and conversations about the conditions of familial love, I edited the post to remove the tags to their workplaces, adding an apology for that specific action. However, I left the rest of the content untouched. My truth was not up for negotiation. As the post continued to circulate, it sparked discussions on various platforms about the expectations and obligations of family. Many rallied to my defense, echoing the sentiment that families should support, not condition their love on financial contributions. Through it all, I stood firm. The decision to go public was not made lightly, but it was made with the conviction that transparency and integrity mattered more than maintaining appearances. The controversy did lead to some relatives distancing themselves, but it also brought unexpected support from others who admired my courage. One afternoon, as I watched Alex play, his innocent laughter was a balm to my troubled heart. No matter the fallout, I knew my first duty was to him, to ensure he grew up in an environment where love was given freely, not conditionally. My resolve hardened, ready to face whatever consequences the future held, fortified by the belief that truth, however difficult, was always worth standing for. As the echoes of the social media storm began to fade, I redirected my energies toward the tangible elements of our new life. The chaos had taken its toll, and now more than ever, Alex and I needed stability and peace. I immersed myself in the world of freelance work, tapping into skills I had previously set aside. I hadn't used these skills in years, but the flexibility of freelance work was perfect for a single mother like me. It allowed me to balance caring for Alex while rebuilding our financial foundation. "Emily, I've got a project that might be right up your alley," said Mark, a former colleague who reached out after hearing about my situation. "It's remote and the pay is good. You should give it a shot." Grateful for the opportunity, I dove into the work with enthusiasm. Each completed assignment was more than just a task. It was a brick laid in the foundation of our new life. Slowly, the fruits of my labor began to show, and within months, I had saved enough to consider moving into a place we could finally call our own. Finding the right apartment was a journey in itself. Alex, ever curious, tagged along to viewings, his delighted giggles echoing through empty rooms that promised new beginnings. When we finally found the one, a small sunlit two-bedroom on the outskirts of town, I knew we had found our new home. "Look, Alex, this will be your room," I said, watching his eyes light up as we explored his new space. I could already picture where we put his little bed and the shelves for his growing collection of books. The day we moved in was a whirlwind of activity, with Sarah and a few other close friends lending their hands and hearts. "You've come so far, Emily," Sarah said as she unpacked a box of kitchenware. "I'm so proud of you." Their support was a reminder of the good in the world and of the kind of unconditional love my parents had withheld, but that Alex would never lack. Amidst these positive changes, my parents made sporadic attempts to reconnect, sending messages and small gifts for Alex. "We miss you. Let's try to start over," read a note from my mother, tucked into a book of children's stories. I approached these attempts with a guarded heart. Healing from their betrayal was not linear, and while I appreciated their efforts, I knew some wounds ran too deep for quick fixes. My responses were polite but firm, prioritizing our well-being and a stable, loving environment I was determined to nurture. "Mom, thanks for the book. We're doing well. Let's take things one step at a time," I replied, setting boundaries to protect Alex and me from potential hurt. As the months passed, our new apartment truly became a home, filled with laughter, love, and the occasional mess of toys and art supplies. I found joy in the small moments, morning cuddles, park outings, and bedtime stories that made up our days. It was a life built on our terms, free from the shadows of the past. Looking back, the road was undoubtedly rough, marked by heartbreak and hardship, but it led us here, to a place of our own, a sanctuary where Alex could thrive and where I could finally breathe, knowing we were safe, loved, and home. The new beginning we had fought so hard for was now our reality, and every day was a testament to the strength found in starting new. As months turned into a year, the unexpected consequences of my public revelation about my parents' conditional support began to unfold in ways I hadn't anticipated. Despite my initial intentions to share my story as a cautionary tale and a source of catharsis, the ripple effects were profound, reshaping not just my life but theirs as well. My parents, who had always been respected in their professional circles, found their reputations challenged. The blog post had tarnished their reputations. The story of their harsh treatment during my pregnancy resonated deeply with many, and the community's response was swift and severe. Colleagues who had once greeted them with smiles now offered only cold shoulders. Invitations to social gatherings dried up as friends distanced themselves, disapproving of how they had treated their pregnant daughter. "It's just not the same at work anymore," my father confided during one of his rare calls, his voice tinged with regret. "People look at us differently. Actions have consequences," I replied, my tone neutral yet firm. It was important for them to understand the gravity of their decisions, not just for my sake, but for their own reflection and growth. As I forged ahead, building a life of independence and nurturing Alex with all the love I could muster, my parents were left to reckon with the fallout of their choices. The community's judgment served as a mirror, forcing them to confront the harshness of their actions. Meanwhile, Alex and I flourished in our new environment. Each day brought new joys and challenges, but the freedom to make our own choices and the absence of conditional love allowed us to thrive. My freelance career grew as I secured more clients, drawn in by my dedication and the quality of my work. Our little apartment felt like a castle, filled with laughter, love, and the endless potential of the days ahead. In quiet moments, I often reflected on the journey. The pain my parents had caused was still a tender wound, yet it had compelled me to grow in ways I never imagined. I had become not just a survivor, but a thriver, someone who could stand on her own and provide a nurturing home for her child. "Mom, look at me," Alex would shout as he zoomed around our living room, a makeshift cape tied around his neck. His joy was my greatest reward, a balm to the wounds of the past. As for my parents, their journey was their own to navigate. The community's backlash was a form of natural justice, a consequence of their actions that no court could have imposed. They reached out occasionally, their voices softer, tinged with the understanding of what they had lost. I listened, but with the knowledge that some distances were necessary for healing. In the end, fate had handed down its verdict. As I watched Alex grow each day, a testament to our resilience and love, I knew the future was bright, filled with the promise of unconditional love and new beginnings. Our past, with its shadows and pain, was behind us, serving not as a chain but as a lesson on the power of standing firm in one's truth and the redemptive strength of moving forward. The story of Emily's resilience has come to a close. How would you have handled the situation if you were in Emily's shoes? Share your thoughts, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more real-life tales.
The eviction notice was still warm from the printer when Jonathan slapped it down on the kitchen table where I was sitting with my cold coffee and Mom's medical bills. 30 days, Ellie. That's generous considering. My name is Eliana Moore, and I've spent the last 10 years of my life wiping drool from my mother's chin, crushing pills into applesauce, and watching my career die a slow, suffocating death. But apparently, that doesn't buy you much when your golden boy brother inherits everything. Considering what? I kept my voice steady, though my hands were shaking. The paper felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. Considering you're living in my house rent-free. Jonathan straightened his tie, the same navy one he'd worn to Mom's funeral 3 days ago. I've got plans for this place. I stared at him, really stared. When did my little brother become this stranger in an expensive suit? When did his eyes get so cold? Your house? The words tasted like ash. Right. Look, I know this is hard. Do you? I stood up so fast my chair scraped against the linoleum. Do you know what's hard, Jonathan? Hard is giving up my job at the marketing firm when Mom had her first stroke. Hard is learning to change adult diapers and sleeping 3 hours a night for years. Hard is watching all my friends move on with their lives while I'm Googling how to prevent bed sores at 2 in the morning. He had the decency to look uncomfortable. Mom needed care. You were good at it. I was good at it because I had to be good at it. Because you were too busy playing house with Joanna in your downtown loft to visit more than twice a year. That's not fair. I sent money. You sent guilt money. There's a difference. I picked up the eviction notice, my hands steadier now. Anger has a way of burning through shock. Tell me something, Jonathan. When exactly did Mom promise you the house? His jaw tightened. What do you mean? I mean, she told me for years that the house would be mine. Don't worry, Ellie, she'd say. You're sacrificing so much. The house will be yours when I'm gone. It's only fair. I mimicked Mom's voice, that sweet, manipulative tone she used when she wanted something. So when did she change her mind? Or did she tell us both what we wanted to hear? Jonathan's silence was answer enough. Jesus Christ. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. She played us against each other right until the end, didn't she? The will is legal, Ellie. I'm sorry you're upset, but... Upset? The word came out as a shriek. I'm not upset, Jonathan. I'm devastated. I'm broke. I'm 36 years old with a 10-year gap in my resume and nowhere to live. But upset? That's what you call it when your coffee gets cold. He shifted his weight, glancing toward the door like he was planning his escape. Classic Jonathan. When things got messy, he disappeared. I can give you some money to help with the transition. First month's rent somewhere, maybe... How much? What? How much money? Because I've got about $3,000 in my savings account. That's what's left after I spent my inheritance early. On Mom's care, on this house, on keeping her comfortable while you were playing successful businessman. I stepped closer, and he actually backed up. So how much were you thinking? 500? 1,000? What's 10 years of my life worth to you? Ellie, please, get out. This is still your home for 30 days. I'm not trying to be cruel. Get out. I pointed toward the door. Before I do something we'll both regret. He left the eviction notice on the table and walked away, just like he always did. Just like he had when Mom was dying and I was the only one holding her hand. I stood in the kitchen where I'd made thousands of meals, administered countless medications, and slowly watched my mother fade away. The house felt different now, not like home, but like a museum of my wasted years. 30 days. He thought he was being generous. If only he knew what I'd been planning for the last 2 years. The cardboard boxes arrived the next morning, delivered by a kid who couldn't have been older than 20. He looked at me with pity when I signed for them, probably thought I was some sad woman getting evicted. He wasn't wrong. I started with Mom's bedroom. Easier to pack up her things than face my own stuff. Her closet still smelled like the lavender sachets she insisted on, mixed with that medicinal scent that clung to everything in the final months. 47 cardigans, I muttered, folding each one. Who needs 47 cardigans? The doorbell rang while I was debating whether to keep her jewelry box. Sophie's voice carried through the house. Ellie, it's me. I found her in the kitchen, holding a bottle of wine and wearing her lawyer face, the expression that meant business. Day drinking? I asked. Emergency drinking. There's a difference. She set the bottle on the counter and looked around. God, this place feels different already. That's what happens when your childhood home becomes someone else's investment property. Sophie had been my best friend since college, back when I thought I'd conquer the marketing world and she was going to be the next big civil rights attorney. Life had other plans for both of us, but at least she still practiced law. Have you thought about what I said? She opened the wine without asking. About the lien? I'd been avoiding this conversation for 3 days. Sophie, because if you're going to use it, now's the time. Once he starts making changes to the property or tries to sell, I know. I accepted the glass she handed me. Using it feels so final. Final how? Final like getting evicted from your own home? Before I could answer, car doors slammed outside. Through the window, I watched Jonathan climb out of his BMW, followed by Joanna. She was carrying a measuring tape and what looked like fabric samples. You've got to be kidding me, I breathed. They walked in without knocking because apparently it was Jonathan's house now. Oh. Joanna stopped short when she saw Sophie and me. I didn't realize you had company. This is still my home for 27 more days, I said. Jonathan looked uncomfortable, but Joanna just smiled. She was one of those women who weaponized politeness, all sharp edges wrapped in silk. Of course, we're just getting a head start on measurements. The contractor needs them for the renovation estimate. She held up her tape measure like it was perfectly normal to measure someone else's living room while they were still living in it. Renovation? Sophie's voice had gone dangerously quiet. Nothing major, Jonathan said quickly. Just updating things. New kitchen, maybe knock out a wall or two. Knock out walls? I set my wine down hard enough to slosh. These are load-bearing walls, Jonathan. You'll destroy the structural integrity. I'll hire professionals, he said. It's not your concern anymore. Joanna was already measuring the space between the kitchen and dining room, making notes on her phone. This wall definitely has to go. The whole layout is so dated. Dated? I looked around the room where I'd eaten breakfast every morning for 10 years, where Mom and I had watched countless movies during her bad days. This layout has been here for 60 years. Exactly. Joanna didn't look up from her measuring. Very 1960s. We're thinking open concept, maybe add an island. We? Sophie interrupted. Are you moving in too? Joanna's smile faltered for just a second. Jonathan and I are discussing our future. How romantic, Sophie said, planning your future in someone else's childhood home. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut. Jonathan kept glancing between me and the door, probably calculating his escape route again. Look, he said, I know this is weird, but I'm trying to be practical. The house needs work, and I can't afford to let it sit empty. Empty? The word came out like a slap. I'm not empty, Jonathan. I'm still here. For now, Joanna said, then caught herself. I mean, obviously you'll find somewhere wonderful. A fresh start. Sophie stood up. I think that's enough measuring for today. We're almost done, Joanna started. No, you're done. Sophie's courtroom voice could freeze hell. This is still Ellie's home, and you're being incredibly disrespectful. Jonathan finally found his spine. Sophie, I appreciate your concern, but this is between family. Which family? I laughed bitterly. Right, the family that shows up to measure for renovations before the funeral flowers are even dead. They left, but not before Joanna made a point of photographing the crown molding for the contractor. After their car pulled away, Sophie refilled our glasses. So, she said, about that lien. I stared at the wall Joanna wanted to demolish, the one where Mom had marked my height every birthday until I turned 18. Make the call. Sophie spread the documents across Mom's dining table like she was laying out battle plans, which in a way, she was. Remind me again how you managed all this without Jonathan knowing? She picked up a receipt dated 18 months ago. Medical equipment rental, paid by Eliana Moore. Home modifications for accessibility, paid by Eliana Moore. Jesus, Ellie, you documented everything. I had to. Mom's insurance barely covered the basics. I pointed to another stack. Physical therapy, medications not covered by Medicare, the hospital bed, the wheelchair ramp I had built. It all came out of my savings. $63,000, Sophie whistled low. You spent $63,000 of your own money on her care. 63,000 and change, but who's counting? The doorbell interrupted us. Through the window, I saw Peyton from next door holding a casserole dish. That woman has radar for drama, I muttered, but I let her in anyway. Peyton had lived next door for 20 years. She'd watched Jonathan and me grow up, had been bringing casseroles during every family crisis since Dad died. Tuna noodle, she announced, setting the dish on the counter. And before you say you're not hungry, you need to eat. Your skin and bones. Thanks, Peyton. She glanced at the papers spread across the table. Legal troubles? Sophie and I exchanged looks. Peyton was sweet, but she was also the neighborhood's unofficial news network. Just sorting through some paperwork, I said carefully. Peyton wasn't buying it. You know, I ran into Jonathan at the grocery store yesterday. He was telling anyone who'd listen about his big inheritance. Said he's planning to flip the house, make a killing in this market. My jaw clenched. He said that? Oh yes, very proud of himself. Even mentioned putting it on one of those house flipping shows. Peyton's voice carried that particular tone older women used when they were about to deliver devastating gossip. Of course, I told him he might want to be careful about counting his chickens. Sophie looked up sharply. What do you mean? Well, I've been watching this family for 2 decades. I saw who was here every day taking care of Gianna, and I saw who wasn't. Peyton's eyes found mine. I also saw who was paying for things when the medical bills started piling up. Peyton, I'm not blind, dear. I saw the medical supply trucks, the contractors building that ramp. I saw you crying on the porch after those insurance calls. She patted my hand. And I saw your brother show up twice in the last year. Twice. Sophie was taking notes now. Would you be willing to testify to that, if it came to it? Testify to what? The truth? Peyton straightened her shoulders. Absolutely. After Peyton left, Sophie called her office. I listened to her explain the situation to her assistant, using words like unjust enrichment and constructive trust, legal terms that meant Jonathan was about to get a very unpleasant surprise. How long before he gets the paperwork? I asked when she hung up. The lien notice will be filed today. He should receive official notification within 48 hours. Sophie gathered the documents into neat piles. Are you ready for this, Ellie? Because once we file, there's no going back. He's going to be furious. Good. I've been furious for 10 years. My phone buzzed with a text from Jonathan. Contractor coming by at 2 p.m. to look at kitchen. Won't take long. I showed Sophie the message. She shook her head. He's already spending money he doesn't have. This is going to make the lien even more effective. At exactly 2 p.m., Jonathan arrived with a man in work boots carrying a clipboard. They didn't bother knocking this time, just walked in like they owned the place, which, legally, Jonathan did. For now. Ellie, this is Mike. He's going to take some measurements. Mike nodded politely and headed for the kitchen. I could hear him opening cabinets, testing the stability of counters. You know, I said conversationally, you might want to hold off on any major renovations. Why? Jonathan was scrolling through his phone, not really listening. Just a feeling. Mike emerged from the kitchen. It's doable, but it's going to be expensive. Those cabinets are custom, probably original to the house. Removing them without damaging the walls will add to the cost. How much are we talking? Jonathan asked. For everything you want? Probably 40, 50,000, maybe more if we hit any surprises. Jonathan's face went pale. That much? Quality work costs money, but it'll add value to the house when you sell. After they left, I sat in the kitchen Mom and I had shared for so many years. The cabinets Mike wanted to rip out were the ones Dad had installed himself, working weekends for months to get them perfect. The countertops were where Mom had taught me to make her famous chocolate chip cookies. Soon, none of it would matter. Jonathan would gut the place, turn it into some generic flip house, and sell it to strangers. Unless, of course, he couldn't afford to. My phone rang. Sophie's number. It's done, she said. The lien is officially filed. Jonathan should get his notice tomorrow. I walked to the front window and looked out at the street where I'd learned to ride a bike, where I'd waited for the school bus every morning for 12 years. Good, I said. Let's see how he likes surprises. The front door slammed so hard the windows rattled. I was in the kitchen making coffee when Jonathan stormed in, waving a legal document like it was on fire. What the hell is this? He threw the papers on the counter, his face red with rage. I glanced at the letterhead. Looks like a lien notice to me. Don't play dumb, Ellie. $63,000. Are you out of your mind? Actually, it's $63,412, plus interest. I poured my coffee slowly, keeping my hands steady. I rounded down to be nice. This is insane. You can't just put a lien on property you don't own. I can when I'm owed money by the estate, which I am. I turned to face him. Every receipt is documented, Jonathan. Every payment I made for Mom's care while you were playing house with Joanna. His mouth opened and closed like a fish. Those were gifts. You chose to pay for those things. Gifts? I laughed. Right. I gifted Mom a hospital bed because I thought it would look nice in her room. I gifted her physical therapy because I was feeling generous. You never asked me to help pay. I shouldn't have had to ask. She was your mother, too. The kitchen door swung open and Joanna walked in, carrying shopping bags. She took one look at Jonathan's face and the papers scattered on the counter. What's wrong? She asked. Ellie's trying to steal the house, Jonathan said. I'm not stealing anything. I'm collecting a debt. Joanna set down her bags and picked up the lien notice, scanning it quickly. This is ridiculous. You can't prove you're owed this money. I walked to the drawer where I kept Mom's medical files and pulled out a thick folder. Actually, I can. Bank statements, receipts, insurance claims, payment records, everything's here. So what? Joanna's voice got shrill. You chose to spend your money. That doesn't mean the estate owes you anything. It does when I was acting as the estate's agent. Mom had no other income besides Social Security. Someone had to pay for her care. I opened the folder and spread out documents. Here's the receipt for the wheelchair ramp, $3,200. Here's the hospital bed rental, $400 a month for 18 months. Stop. Jonathan held up his hand. Just stop. What do you want? I want what I'm owed. The estate doesn't have $63,000 in cash. I know. That's why there's a lien on the house. Joanna's face went white. What does that mean exactly? It means, I said, enjoying this more than I should have, that Jonathan can't sell the house until the debt is satisfied. And if he can't pay the debt, the house gets sold to pay it, or the title transfers to me to settle the amount owed. That's impossible, Jonathan said. You can't just take someone's inheritance. I'm not taking it. I'm collecting what's owed to me. There's a difference. Joanna grabbed Jonathan's arm. Can she actually do this? I don't know. I need to call Clint. Jonathan pulled out his phone. Good idea, I said. Call your lawyer. Have him explain how liens work. Jonathan stepped into the living room to make his call. I could hear him talking in urgent, hushed tones. Joanna stayed in the kitchen, glaring at me. You're destroying your own family, she said. My family destroyed itself a long time ago. I'm just collecting payment for services rendered. Services rendered? She was your mother. She was his mother, too, but I don't see him here changing diapers or crushing pills or sleeping in a chair next to her bed when she was scared. He sent money. He sent guilt money. A few hundred here and there when he remembered. I spent my life savings, keeping her comfortable and keeping this house from falling apart around her. Jonathan came back, his face grim. Clint wants to meet with us tomorrow. He says the lien might be valid. Might be? I raised an eyebrow. Jonathan, I used to work in marketing. I know how to document expenses and build a case. This isn't some emotional outburst. I've been planning this for 2 years. 2 years? Joanna looked shocked. You've been planning this since before your mother died? I've been protecting myself since I realized Mom was playing us against each other. She told you the house would be yours, didn't she, Jonathan? Just like she told me it would be mine. His silence was answer enough. She was manipulating us both. The difference is I prepared for it. Jonathan sank into a chair. What do you want, Ellie? Really? I want what's fair. I want compensation for 10 years of my life. I want recognition that I sacrificed everything while you sacrificed nothing. And if I can't pay? I met his eyes. Then you'll lose the house, just like I lost everything else. He reached for his phone again. I'm calling Clint back. This isn't over. No, I agreed. It's just getting started. Clint called me at 7 in the morning. I was barely awake when my phone rang, but his voice was wide awake and aggressive. Ms. Moore, this is Clint Davidson, Jonathan's attorney. We need to talk. Good morning to you, too. I'm calling about this lien situation. My client is willing to negotiate a settlement. I sat up in bed. How generous of him. Look, I've reviewed the documentation. Some of your expenses might be legitimate, but $63,000 is excessive. We're prepared to offer $15,000 to make this go away. 15,000? I laughed. That's not even a quarter of what I'm owed. It's a fair offer considering the circumstances. Medical expenses for a family member are typically considered gifts, not loans. Not when the family member has no other means to pay and someone has to step up. I wasn't gifting anything, Mr. Davidson. I was covering necessary expenses that the estate couldn't afford. That's your interpretation. A court might see it differently. Then I guess we'll find out in court. There was a pause. Ms. Moore, litigation is expensive and time-consuming. Even if you win, you might not collect anything. Jonathan doesn't have $63,000 in liquid assets. But he has the house. The house is his inheritance. You can't just take someone's inheritance because you chose to spend money on their mother's care. I can when the estate benefited from my expenditures, and I can prove I was acting as the estate's agent. I was fully awake now. Has Jonathan told you about the power of attorney documents? Another pause, longer this time. What power of attorney documents? The ones Mom signed 2 years ago when she was still competent, making me her financial agent, which means every expense I paid was legally authorized by the estate. The line went quiet. I could practically hear him scrambling through paperwork. I'll need to see those documents. I'm sure you will. Sophie has copies. Sophie? My attorney, Sophie Cox. I'm sure you know her. I heard him curse under his breath. Sophie had a reputation in town for being thorough and ruthless. Mr. Davidson? Are you still there? I'll call you back. He hung up. I was making coffee when Sophie called 20 minutes later. Clint just called me, she said. He sounds panicked. Good. What did he want? Copies of the power of attorney documents, and he asked about our settlement position. What did you tell him? That we're not interested in settling for less than full payment plus interest and legal fees. My phone buzzed with a text from Jonathan. Need to talk. Coming over. Jonathan's on his way over, I told Sophie. I'll be there in 10 minutes. Don't agree to anything without me present. Jonathan arrived first, looking like he hadn't slept. His hair was messy and his shirt was wrinkled. Joanna wasn't with him. Where's your girlfriend? I asked. We had a fight. He slumped into a kitchen chair. About this whole situation. Let me guess. She's not thrilled about the lien. She thinks I should just pay you and be done with it. Smart woman. Too bad you can't afford to take her advice. Ellie, please, can we work something out? I'll give you whatever cash I have. Maybe we can set up a payment plan. How much cash do you have? About $8,000 in savings. Maybe I could get a loan. For $63,000? With what collateral? You can't use the house as collateral because of the lien. Sophie walked in without knocking. Morning, Jonathan. You look terrible. Thanks. Really helpful. She sat down across from him. Clint called me. He seems to think we might be willing to negotiate. Aren't you? That depends. Are you willing to pay the full amount owed? I don't have $63,000. Then there's nothing to negotiate. Sophie opened her briefcase and pulled out a folder. The lien stands. You can't sell the house, you can't refinance it, and you can't make any major improvements without risking additional claims. Additional claims? If you spend money improving the property while owing Ellie money, she could claim those improvements as additional damages, especially since you'd be using her collateral to secure loans. Jonathan's face went gray. That's insane. That's the law. So what are my options? Sophie counted on her fingers. Pay the debt in full, transfer the house to Ellie to settle the debt, or force a sale and split the proceeds according to the lien amount. Split the proceeds how? The house is worth about $200,000. After the lien is satisfied and legal fees are paid, you'd get whatever's left. That's not fair. It's my inheritance. It's an inheritance with debts attached, I said. Debts you helped create by being absent. I wasn't absent. I visited twice in the last year. Sophie interrupted. We have witnesses who can testify to that. Jonathan put his head in his hands. This is a nightmare. It's consequences, I said. Something you've managed to avoid your whole life. He looked up at me with red-rimmed eyes. What happened to you, Ellie? You used to be kind. I used to be a doormat. There's a difference. My phone rang. Clint's number again. Take it, Sophie said. Put it on speaker. Ms. Moore, I've reviewed the power of attorney documents. They appear to be legitimate. They are legitimate. My client would like to propose a different arrangement. What if he signed the house over to you and you gave him a cash settlement for the difference between the property value and the lien amount? Sophie and I exchanged glances. How much cash? She asked. The house is appraised at 200,000 minus the lien amount and legal fees. That leaves about 130,000. Jonathan doesn't have 130,000, I said. He could get a personal loan? With what income? What job? I looked at Jonathan. You do still have a job, right? His silence was answer enough. I'll call you back, Clint, Sophie said and hung up. You lost your job? I stared at my brother. When? Last month. Budget cuts. Jesus, Jonathan, does Joanna know? She knows now. That's why we fought. Sophie closed her briefcase. Well, that changes things. Without income, he can't get a loan large enough to buy you out. So what happens now? Now we go to court, and Jonathan loses the house. The courthouse smelled like old wood and broken dreams. I sat in the hallway outside the courtroom, watching Jonathan pace back and forth while Clint whispered urgently into his phone. Stop fidgeting, Sophie said, adjusting her suit jacket. You look nervous. I am nervous. Don't be. We have everything we need. She patted her briefcase. Documentation, witnesses, legal precedent. This is as solid as cases get. Peyton walked up the hallway wearing her best dress and carrying a manila folder. I brought everything you asked for, she told Sophie. Photos, dates, even some of the medical supply delivery receipts I found in my recycling. You kept delivery receipts? I asked. Honey, I keep everything. 20 years of watching this neighborhood means 20 years of evidence. She glanced at Jonathan, who was still pacing. He looks awful. He should. His girlfriend left him yesterday. Joanna left? Peyton's eyebrows shot up. When? Yesterday morning. Packed her bags and moved out of his apartment. Apparently, dating a broke, unemployed man with legal problems wasn't part of her life plan. Can't say I'm surprised. That girl always struck me as the type who'd jump ship at the first sign of trouble. The courtroom doors opened and a bailiff called our case. Inside, the judge looked tired and slightly annoyed, like he'd rather be anywhere else. Judge Harrison, according to the nameplate on his bench, this is a hearing regarding a lien placed on property at 47 Maple Street, he said, reading from his notes. Ms. Cox, you're representing the lien holder? Sophie stood. Yes, Your Honor. My client, Eliana Moore, is seeking to enforce a valid lien against the estate of Gianna Ortiz for unpaid caregiving expenses. Mr. Davidson, you're representing the property owner? Clint stood, looking less confident than he had on the phone. Yes, Your Honor. My client, Jonathan Moore, inherited the property and disputes the validity of this lien. Very well. Ms. Cox, present your case. Sophie was in her element. She laid out the timeline methodically. Mom's declining health, my role as primary caregiver, the financial burden I'd shouldered alone. Your Honor, the evidence shows that Ms. Moore spent over $63,000 of her personal funds on her mother's care over a 2-year period. She was acting under a valid power of attorney, making these expenditures on behalf of the estate. She presented the power of attorney documents, the receipts, the bank statements. Everything was organized, labeled, and cross-referenced. Furthermore, Sophie continued, the defendant was largely absent during this period, visiting his mother only twice in the final year of her life, while my client provided round-the-clock care. Objection, Clint said. The frequency of my client's visits is irrelevant to the lien claim. Overruled. It goes to the reasonableness of the plaintiff's actions and the defendant's knowledge of the situation. Sophie called Peyton to the stand. My neighbor was nervous but determined. Mrs. Wade, how long have you lived next door to the Ortiz family? 22 years. I watched both children grow up. During Mrs. Ortiz's final illness, who did you observe providing care? Ellie, every day, all day. I'd see her coming and going with medical supplies, helping her mother to doctor appointments, sitting on the porch with her when the weather was nice. And how often did you see the defendant, Jonathan Moore? Maybe twice in the last year, Christmas and the funeral. Did you observe any of the medical equipment or modifications made to the house? Oh, yes. The wheelchair ramp. The hospital bed being delivered, the physical therapist coming 3 times a week. I saw Ellie paying the delivery men, signing for everything. When Clint cross-examined Peyton, he tried to suggest she was biased, but she held her ground. I'm not biased, young man. I'm observant. There's a difference. Then it was Jonathan's turn to testify. He looked miserable on the witness stand. Mr. Moore, were you aware your sister was spending her personal funds on your mother's care? I. I knew she was helping, but I didn't know the exact amounts. Did you contribute to these expenses? I sent money when I could. How much money did you send over the 2-year period in question? Jonathan's voice was barely audible. Maybe 3,000 total. 3,000 out of 63,000. Did you ever offer to take over your mother's care? I live in the city. I couldn't. Did you ever offer to hire professional caregivers? I couldn't afford. But you could afford a downtown apartment and a BMW? Objection. Clint stood up. Sustained. Move on, Ms. Cox. When it was Clint's turn, he tried to argue that my expenses were voluntary gifts, that I'd chosen to spend the money without being asked. Your Honor, there was no formal agreement requiring Ms. Moore to pay these expenses. She chose to do so out of familial obligation. But Sophie was ready for this. Your Honor, the power of attorney documents clearly establish Ms. Moore as her mother's financial agent. Every expense was necessary for Mrs. Ortiz's care and well-being. The estate benefited from these expenditures, and the law requires reimbursement. The judge reviewed the documents for what felt like an eternity. Finally, he looked up. I'm ready to rule. The evidence clearly shows that Ms. Moore expended significant personal funds for her mother's necessary care while acting under a valid power of attorney. The defendant was aware of his mother's condition and chose not to participate in her care or contribute meaningfully to her expenses. My heart was pounding. The lien is valid and enforceable. Mr. Moore, you have 30 days to satisfy the debt, or the property will be sold to satisfy the judgment. Jonathan's face crumpled. Clint was already whispering about appeals, but I could see the defeat in my brother's eyes. We'd won. After everything, we'd actually won. So why did I feel so empty? Jonathan was waiting by my car when we left the courthouse. His face was blotchy and his hands were shaking. Ellie, please, we need to talk. Sophie stepped between us. Jonathan, you should discuss any communication through your attorney. I don't have an attorney anymore. His voice cracked. Clint dropped me, said I can't afford his fees for an appeal. Smart man, Sophie muttered. 5 minutes, I said. That's all. Sophie looked like she wanted to argue, but she walked to her car. I'll wait for you. Jonathan and I stood on the courthouse steps while people streamed around us. He looked broken, like a deflated balloon. You got what you wanted, he said. Are you happy now? Happy? I stared at him. You think this makes me happy? You destroyed me, Ellie. I've lost everything. The house, Joanna, my job. You lost your job before any of this started. And Joanna left because you lied to her about your finances. She left because of the lawsuit, because of what you did. What I did was collect money you owed me. I didn't owe you anything. His voice rose, drawing stares from passers-by. You chose to take care of Mom. Nobody forced you. You're right. Nobody forced me, just like nobody forced you to stay away. I had a life, Ellie. I had a career, a relationship. So did I. I had a job I loved, friends, a future. I gave it all up because someone had to take care of her, and you sure as hell weren't going to do it. That's not fair. It's fair? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. You want to talk about fair? Fair would have been you visiting more than twice a year. Fair would have been you helping with medical bills. Fair would have been you acknowledging that I sacrificed everything while you sacrificed nothing. I sent money. You sent guilt money. $3,000 over 2 years, while I spent $63,000. You spent more than that on your car payments. Jonathan's shoulders sagged. What do you want me to say, Ellie? That I'm sorry? Fine, I'm sorry. I should have done more, but destroying my life won't bring Mom back. This isn't about bringing Mom back. This is about consequences. For the first time in your life, you're facing actual consequences for your choices. My choices? His voice got dangerous. What about your choices? You chose to be the martyr. You chose to sacrifice everything. Don't blame me because you couldn't say no to Mom. The words hit like a physical blow. Because part of me knew he was right. I had chosen to be the good daughter, the responsible one, the one who never said no. You know what the worst part is? I said quietly. Mom played us against each other our entire lives. She told you I was too serious, too controlling. She told me you were irresponsible, that someone had to take care of things, and we both bought into it. So why are you punishing me for it? Because you got everything, and I got nothing. Because even after 10 years of sacrifice, she still chose you, because you walked away from her funeral planning to gut our childhood home and flip it for profit. I needed the money. We all need money, Jonathan. The difference is, I earned mine. He was crying now, not caring who saw. Please, Ellie, there has to be another way. I'll do anything. Anything? Where was anything when Mom was dying? Where was anything when I was sleeping in a chair next to her hospital bed? I was scared, okay? I was scared of watching her die. I couldn't handle it. So you left me to handle it alone. Yes, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry I was weak. I'm sorry I ran away. I'm sorry I left you to deal with everything. But please don't take the house. It's all I have left of her. It's all I have left, too. The difference is, I earned it. Sophie walked over. Ellie, we should go. The 30-day clock starts today. Jonathan grabbed my arm. What if I sign the house over to you right now? No sale, no lawyers, just transfer the deed. You get what you want, and I'll figure something out. And go where? You don't have a job. You don't have savings. I'll figure it out. Maybe this is what I deserve. I looked at my brother. Really looked at him. He was 32 years old and looked like a lost child. For a moment, I felt something that might have been pity. The house is worth more than what you owe me, I said finally. If we sell it, you'll get about $130,000 after the lien is satisfied. I can't get a loan to buy you out. No job, no collateral. Then we sell it. You get your money, I get mine, and we're done. Done? Done. No more family dinners that never happened anyway. No more pretending we're close. No more lies. He nodded slowly. Maybe that's for the best. Maybe it is. Sophie cleared her throat. I'll draw up the paperwork for the sale. Should take about 60 days to close. Jonathan wiped his eyes with his sleeve. I'll be out of the apartment by the end of the month. Lease is up anyway. Where will you go? I don't know. Maybe it's time I figured out how to take care of myself. He walked away without looking back. I watched him get into his BMW, probably the last nice thing he'd owned for a while. You okay? Sophie asked. I won. That's not what I asked. I looked back at the courthouse where I'd just destroyed my brother's life. No, I'm not okay, but I'm done being the victim. Come on, let's go home. Home. For 60 more days, anyway. The house sold faster than expected. Cash buyer, no inspection needed, closing in 3 weeks instead of 60 days. I should have been relieved, but standing in the empty living room with the keys in my hand, I felt hollow. Sophie knocked on the front door even though it was unlocked. The check cleared. Your portion is in your account. How much did Jonathan get? After the lien, legal fees, and realtor commission, about $92,000. I nodded. Enough for him to start over if he was smart about it, which, knowing Jonathan, he probably wouldn't be. Any word from him? He texted yesterday, said he found a job in Portland, some marketing firm. Good for him. Sophie sat on the floor next to me. The house echoed without furniture. So what now? You've got enough money to buy a nice place, maybe go back to school, travel. I don't know what I want. That's okay. You've got time to figure it out. Peyton appeared in the doorway carrying a plate of cookies. I saw the moving truck leave. Thought you might be hungry. Thanks. I took a cookie even though I wasn't hungry. The new owners seem nice. Young couple with a baby. They're excited about the house. Peyton sat down with us. They asked about the history. I told them it was a happy home. Was it? Parts of it were. Your father building those kitchen cabinets, your mother teaching you to garden, you kids playing in the backyard. She patted my knee. Homes aren't just about the sad times, dear. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Ellie, it's Jonathan. New phone. Wanted you to know I start work Monday. Thank you for not taking everything. I know you could have. I showed the text to Sophie. She raised an eyebrow. That's surprisingly mature of him. Maybe losing everything taught him something. Are you going to respond? I stared at the message. Part of me wanted to ignore it, to let the silence stretch between us forever. But another part, the part that remembered teaching him to ride a bike, helping him with homework, protecting him from bullies, that part was tired of being angry. I typed back, "Good luck with the job." 3 dots appeared immediately, then, "I'm sorry, Ellie, for all of it. I know that doesn't fix anything, but I needed to say it." I know. Maybe someday we can talk. Really talk. I looked around the empty house at the walls that had witnessed our childhood, our mother's death, our family's destruction. Maybe? Sophie and Peyton were pretending not to watch me text. "He apologized," I said. "How do you feel about that?" Sophie asked. I don't know. Angry that it took losing everything for him to see what he'd done. Sad that it came to this. Relieved that it's over. "All of those feelings can be true at the same time," Peyton said. A car pulled up outside. Through the window, I saw a young woman with a baby carrier and a man with a toolbox. The new owners, coming to measure for curtains or plan renovations. "I should go," I said, standing up. "Let them have their moment." We walked outside together. The woman smiled and waved. "Are you the previous owner?" she asked. "I grew up here. My family just sold it. It's a beautiful house. We can't wait to make it our own." "The kitchen cabinets are original," I said. "My father built them himself. They're solid wood, worth keeping." "Oh, we're definitely keeping them. They're gorgeous." I felt something loosen in my chest. The house would be loved again. The cabinets would stay. Maybe that mattered more than I'd thought. Sophie drove me to my new apartment, a small place across town, nothing fancy, but it was mine. No medical equipment, no pill schedules, no one to take care of but myself. "You sure you don't want to stay with me for a while?" Sophie asked as we carried boxes upstairs. "I need to learn how to be alone. I haven't lived alone since I was 26. What's the first thing you're going to do?" I looked around the empty apartment. Sunlight streamed through the windows, and I could hear children playing in the courtyard below. It felt like possibility. Sleep in, order takeout, maybe look into those online marketing courses I bookmarked 3 years ago. Sounds perfect. After Sophie left, I sat on my new couch, the first piece of furniture I'd bought for myself in a decade, and opened my laptop. I had an email from a marketing agency I'd applied to, asking for an interview. I also had a friend request on social media from Jonathan. His profile picture showed him in a coffee shop, looking tired but determined. I stared at the request for a long time. Then I clicked accept. Some bridges burn completely. Others just need time to heal. I closed the laptop and looked out the window. Tomorrow I'd start rebuilding my life. Tonight I was just going to sit in my own space, in my own silence, and remember what it felt like to choose. The house was gone. The money was mine. The family was broken, maybe forever. But for the first time in 10 years, I was free, and that felt like enough.
"You're just the help now, aren't you?" Those words hit me like a slap across the face as I stood frozen outside Vera's dining room, holding a plate of her leftover birthday cake. My sister's voice carried that familiar laugh, the one she'd perfected in high school when she wanted to cut someone down to size. But, this time, she was talking about me. My name is Sydney Martinez, and 6 months ago, I thought I was giving my sister the greatest gift imaginable. Now I'm standing in her hallway at 32 years old, 7 months pregnant with her baby, listening to her call me the help to her best friend Jennifer. "I mean, she's doing what we're paying her for," Vera continued, her voice dripping with that fake sweetness she used when she wanted to sound reasonable. "But honestly, Jen, sometimes I think she forgets her place." Jennifer's cackle made my stomach turn. "At least she's useful for something now. Remember when she was just your unemployed little sister?" I pressed my back against the wall, my free hand instinctively moving to my swollen belly. The baby kicked, as if sensing my distress, or maybe she was just responding to my racing heart. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. 6 months ago, Vera had been crying in my arms after her 3rd failed IVF attempt. She and Clyde had been trying for years to give their adopted son, Joshua, a sibling. The doctors said her endometriosis made carrying a pregnancy nearly impossible. "I just want to be a real family," she'd sobbed into my shoulder. "Joshua keeps asking when his baby brother or sister is coming, and I don't know what to tell him anymore." That's when I offered, without thinking, without hesitation. "I'll do it. I'll carry your baby." Vera had looked at me like I'd just offered to move mountains. "Sydney, you can't be serious." "I am. Completely serious. We share DNA, so it's the next best thing to you carrying the baby yourself. I want to do this for you." The gratitude in her eyes that day had made me feel like I was finally important to someone in my family. After years of being the middle child who never quite measured up to Vera's beauty and success, or Cameron's easy charm, I'd found my purpose. Clyde had been more practical about the whole thing. "We'll need a contract," he'd said during our first family meeting about the surrogacy. "Legal protection for everyone involved." That's when I'd called Guy, the family lawyer who'd handled Dad's estate. Guy had insisted on what he called comprehensive protection clauses. "These people might be your family, Sydney," he'd said, sliding the thick contract across his desk. "But money and babies make people do crazy things. We're putting in safeguards." Vera and Clyde had barely glanced at the contract before signing. When Guy had mentioned something about paragraph 12 and postnatal involvement provisions, Vera had actually laughed. "Guy, you're being ridiculous. This is my sister we're talking about, not some stranger. We don't need all these legal gymnastics." Clyde had nodded along. "We trust Sydney completely. These extra clauses are just lawyer paranoia." I'd felt a warm glow at their words. Trust. Family. Finally belonging somewhere. The first few months had been everything I'd dreamed of. Vera had driven me to every appointment, held my hand during the ultrasounds, cried happy tears when we found out it was a girl. She'd even started a group chat called Baby Girl Squad, with me, her, and Mom. But somewhere around month 4, things started shifting. The group chat messages became less about excitement and more about instructions. "Make sure you're taking your vitamins." "Did you remember to avoid caffeine today?" "Clyde thinks you should switch to organic everything." The appointments became less about sharing the experience and more about Vera taking control. She'd answer the doctor's questions before I could speak. She'd schedule follow-ups without asking my availability first. "She's just excited," I'd told my best friend Tegan when she'd pointed out the changes. "This is her dream coming true." Now, listening to Vera reduce me to hired help, I wondered when exactly I'd stopped being her sister and started being her employee. "Sydney," Vera's voice called from the dining room. "Can you bring us some more wine?" I took a deep breath, straightened my shoulders, and walked into the room with a smile plastered on my face. "Of course," I said sweetly. "Anything else you need?" But inside, something had shifted, something that would change everything. The text message came at 6:47 a.m. on a Tuesday. "Sydney, Clyde and I have decided you need to stop going to that yoga class. Too risky for the baby. Also, we've made you an appointment with a nutritionist today at 2 p.m. Don't be late. V." I stared at my phone, still groggy from sleep. No, "Good morning." No, "How are you feeling?" Just orders. I typed back. "I've been doing prenatal yoga for months. My doctor said it's fine." The response came immediately. "Our baby, our rules. The nutritionist will give you a proper meal plan. We can't have you eating whatever you want anymore." Our baby. Not the baby or even your niece. Our baby, like I was just the vessel. I screenshot the conversation and sent it to Tegan with a message. Is it just me, or is this getting weird? Her response was immediate. Babe, this crossed weird 3 weeks ago. Start documenting everything. The nutritionist appointment was humiliating. Vera had scheduled it without asking what worked for my schedule. I had to leave work early and make up an excuse to my boss. When I arrived, Vera was already there, sitting in the consultation room like she was the patient. Sydney needs to gain exactly 25 pounds, no more, Vera told the nutritionist, Dr. Kim, before I'd even sat down. She's already gained 18, so we need to be careful. Dr. Kim looked between us, clearly confused. And you are? The baby's mother, Vera said smoothly. Sydney is our surrogate. The word hit me like a physical blow. Surrogate, not sister, not family member doing a favor. Surrogate. I see, Dr. Kim said slowly. Well, Sydney, how are you feeling? Any cravings or aversions? Before I could answer, Vera jumped in. She's been eating too much sugar. Ice cream, cookies, that sort of thing. We need to put a stop to it. Actually, I said, finding my voice, I've been following my doctor's recommendations perfectly. I had one small bowl of ice cream last week when I was having trouble sleeping. Vera's smile was sharp. Sydney, let's be honest here. You've always had a sweet tooth. Dr. Kim handed me a standard pregnancy nutrition pamphlet. This covers everything you need to know. The most important thing is listening to your body and eating when you're hungry. We'll take it from here, Vera said, standing up. Sydney, I'll drive you home. In the car, Vera's mask slipped completely. I don't appreciate you contradicting me in there, she said, not looking at me as she drove. We're paying you good money to take care of our daughter. That means following our guidelines. Paying me? The words came out strangled. Vera, I'm not taking any money. This is a gift. She laughed, but there was no warmth in it. Oh, honey, the contract clearly states compensation. Clyde insisted on it for tax purposes. You're getting $50,000. I felt like the air had been sucked out of the car. I never agreed to any payment. I'm doing this because I love you. Well, now you're doing it because we're paying you. Much cleaner that way, don't you think? That night, I called Cameron. She said, what? My younger brother's voice was tight with anger. She called me a surrogate, Cam, like I'm some stranger they hired. This is bullshit, Sydney. You're doing this out of love and she's treating you like an employee. What should I do? There was a long pause. Let me talk to her. No, don't. It'll just make things worse. Sid, you're my sister. I'm not going to let her treat you like this. But when Cameron confronted Vera the next day, she shut him down fast. Cameron, this is between Sydney and me, she'd told him, according to his report back to me. She agreed to this arrangement. If she has problems with it, she can talk to me directly. What arrangement? He'd demanded. She offered to help you out of love. Love doesn't pay for medical bills and legal fees. We're handling this like adults. The group chat messages got worse after that. What used to be Baby Girl Squad became a stream of instructions and criticism. Sydney, the baby registry is live. Don't share it with anyone without asking us first. Reminder, doctor's appointment Thursday at 10 a.m. Clyde will be asking about your exercise routine. Can you please start wearing looser clothes? The fitted maternity tops are too revealing. Then Jennifer joined the chat. Vera added me so I can help coordinate the baby shower. So excited to celebrate you guys. Within hours, Jennifer was sending her own messages. Sydney, just a thought. Maybe don't post so many pregnancy photos on social media. Some people might get confused about whose baby it is. Also, Vera mentioned you've been telling people you're having a baby instead of carrying a baby. Might want to be more careful with your wording. I screenshot everything and sent it to Tegan. Her response made my blood run cold. Sydney, they're trying to erase you from your own pregnancy. This isn't normal family dynamics. This is psychological abuse. That's when I found the group chat I wasn't supposed to see. Jennifer had accidentally added me to the wrong chat, one called V's baby situation. The messages went back weeks. Honestly, I think Sydney is getting too attached, Jennifer had written. She keeps calling it her pregnancy. Vera's response. I know. Clyde thinks we should limit her involvement after the birth. Clean break. Smart. The last thing you need is her thinking she has some claim to your daughter. Exactly. She's doing her job. Once it's done, we can all move on. My hands were shaking as I screenshot the entire conversation. That night, I called Guy. I need to understand something about the contract, I said. Specifically, what happens if they breach the terms? What kind of breach are we talking about, Sydney? I looked at my phone, filled with screenshots and evidence. The kind where they forget I'm family. The brunch invitation came with a dress code. Wear something nice but not too fitted. Vera's text read, I want you to look presentable for my friends, but remember, this isn't about you. I stared at the message, my coffee growing cold. 8 months pregnant, and she was worried about me stealing her spotlight. The brunch was at Vera's country club, all white tablecloths and mimosas that cost more than my grocery budget. I arrived to find Vera holding court at a table of 6 women, all perfectly manicured and dripping in designer everything. Sydney! Vera's voice was artificially bright. Everyone, this is my sister, the one I was telling you about. The women turned to look at me like I was an exhibit at a museum. I recognized a few faces from Vera's social media, but Jennifer was the only one who bothered to acknowledge me directly. Oh my God! Look at you! Jennifer squealed, jumping up to air kiss my cheeks. You're so brave for doing this. Brave? I asked, settling into the chair Vera had pulled out for me, at the far end of the table, naturally. Well, yes, said a blonde woman whose name tag read, Charity Committee Chair. Surrogacy is such a selfless act. Vera is so lucky to have found someone willing to help. Found someone, like I was hired through an agency. Sydney isn't just someone, I said carefully. I'm Vera's sister. An uncomfortable silence fell over the table. The women exchanged glances. Of course, Jennifer said quickly. But still, it's basically the same thing, right? You're providing a service. Vera jumped in before I could respond. Sydney has been absolutely wonderful. So professional about everything. Professional. There was that word again. How much are you paying her? Asked another woman, leaning forward with obvious curiosity. Oh, we don't discuss the financial details, Vera said with a laugh. But let's just say Sydney is being well compensated for her time. My fork clattered against my plate. Actually, I never asked for any money. This was supposed to be a gift. The table went quiet again. Vera's smile looked painted on. Sydney, you're being modest, she said through gritted teeth. We've talked about this. No, we haven't. You decided to pay me without asking. I told you I didn't want money. Jennifer leaned back in her chair, clearly enjoying the tension. Well, that's unusual. Most surrogates are very clear about compensation up front. I'm not a surrogate, I said, my voice getting louder. I'm her sister, Sydney. Vera's voice was sharp now. Can I speak with you privately? She didn't wait for an answer, grabbing my arm and pulling me toward the bathroom. Once we were alone, her mask dropped completely. What the hell are you doing out there? She hissed. I'm telling the truth, something you seem to have forgotten how to do. The truth? The truth is that you agreed to carry our baby. You signed a contract. You're being paid. That makes you a surrogate, not some martyred saint. I offered to help my sister. That's what I thought I was doing. Vera's laugh was cold. Help? Sydney, you've been unemployed for 6 months. You needed this money. I got laid off from the lab because of budget cuts. That's not the same as being unemployed by choice. Whatever helps you sleep at night. She checked her lipstick in the mirror. But out there, you're going to smile and play along. These women are important to Clyde's business, and I won't have you embarrassing us. Embarrassing you? By existing? By acting like you're more than what you are. She turned to face me fully. You're carrying our baby. That's your job. When it's over, your job is done. We walked back to the table in silence. The conversation had moved on to vacation plans and charity galas, but I could feel the women watching me out of the corners of their eyes. So, Sydney, the blonde woman said as we sat down, what will you do after the baby is born? Look for another surrogacy arrangement. Before I could answer, Vera jumped in. Oh, Sydney will be taking some time to focus on herself. This has been such a big commitment. I imagine it's hard to get attached, Jennifer added, stirring her mimosa. But that's why contracts are so important, right? Clear boundaries. Exactly, Vera agreed. Everyone knows their role. I pulled out my phone and started the voice recording app, setting it face down on the table. What's my role, Vera? I asked sweetly. She blinked, caught off guard. What do you mean? You keep talking about roles and jobs and boundaries. I'm curious what you think my role is. The table was watching us like a tennis match. Jennifer was practically vibrating with excitement. Your role is... Vera paused, clearly trying to find the right words. You're helping us complete our family. By doing what, exactly? By carrying our daughter safely to term and then... She trailed off. And then disappearing? I finished for her. Sydney, you're being dramatic. Am I? Because your friends here seem to think I'm hired help, and you haven't corrected them once. Jennifer leaned forward. Well, technically, aren't you? I mean, you're being paid to provide a service. The service of being a sister? I asked. The service of being an incubator, Jennifer said with a laugh. The word hung in the air like a slap. Even the other women looked uncomfortable now. Vera didn't correct her, didn't defend me, just sat there, sipping her mimosa. I stopped the recording and stood up. Thank you for the brunch, I said to the table. It's been very educational. As I walked away, I heard Jennifer's voice carry across the restaurant. Well, that was awkward. Good thing you have that contract, Vera. I kept walking, my phone heavy in my hand, with the recording that would change everything. I started carrying 2 phones, my regular phone for normal life, and an old iPhone I'd dug out of a drawer specifically for recording conversations. Tegan had shown me how to set up automatic cloud backup for everything. You're building a case, she'd said, scrolling through my screenshots from the brunch. Every text, every recording, every witness to how they're treating you. Guy is going to love this. The evidence was piling up fast. Vera and Clyde had gotten sloppy, probably thinking I was too grateful and desperate to ever push back. The call that broke me came on a Thursday night. I was in bed, trying to get comfortable despite the baby doing gymnastics in my ribs, when my phone rang. "Sydney, we need to talk." Clyde's voice was cold, businesslike. "Vera's putting you on speaker." I fumbled for my recording phone, hitting record just as Vera's voice came through. "Hi, Sydney. We've been discussing some concerns." "What concerns?" "Your behavior at the brunch last weekend was inappropriate," Clyde said. "You made our friends uncomfortable." "I made them uncomfortable. They called me an incubator." "That's exactly what we're talking about," Vera jumped in. "You're being overly sensitive about everything. This is a business arrangement, Sydney. You need to start acting like it." "Business arrangement?" My voice cracked. "Vera, I'm your sister." "And you're also our surrogate," Clyde said flatly. "The two things aren't mutually exclusive, but one takes priority over the other." "Which one?" "The one we're paying you for," Vera said. "Look, Sydney, I know this is emotional for you, but you need to remember what this is. You're providing a service. A very important service, but still a service." I pressed the phone closer to my ear, making sure the recording was clear. "What exactly are you asking me to do?" "We're asking you to be professional," Clyde said. "No more emotional outbursts. No more acting like this baby is yours. And definitely no more embarrassing us in front of our friends." "The baby isn't mine." "Sydney, come on." Vera's voice was getting impatient. "You know what I mean. Yes, you're carrying her, but she's our daughter, our family. You're just helping." "Just helping," I repeated. "Exactly. And once she's born, your job is done. We'll transfer your payment, and everyone can move on with their lives." "Move on?" "Sydney, you can't seriously think you'd be involved in raising her," Clyde said. "That would be confusing for everyone, especially Joshua. He's expecting a baby sister, not a complicated family dynamic." "A complicated family dynamic," I said slowly. "Is that what I am?" "You're being dramatic again," Vera sighed. "Look, we're grateful for what you're doing, but let's not pretend this is anything more than what it is. You needed money. We needed a surrogate. It's worked out well for everyone." "I never needed money. I told you I didn't want to be paid." "Everyone needs money, Sydney," Clyde said. "And frankly, this arrangement has been good for you. You've had purpose, medical care, support, more than you had before. The cruelty of it took my breath away. More than I had before, like I was some charity case they'd rescued." "So, after the birth, what happens?" "You recover, we transfer your payment, and we all go back to our normal lives," Vera said matter-of-factly. "Clean and simple." "And if I want to see the baby?" There was a pause. I could hear them whispering to each other. "Sydney," Vera's voice was careful now, "I think it would be better for everyone if you took some time to adjust. Maybe we could arrange something later, when things have settled." "How much later?" "We'll see," Clyde said. "Let's just focus on getting through the birth first." "You're planning to cut me out completely, aren't you?" "We're planning to protect our family," Vera said, her voice getting sharp again. "And that includes protecting our daughter from confusion about who her real mother is." "Her real mother?" "Me, Sydney. I'm her real mother. You're just carrying her." The line went quiet, except for my ragged breathing. "Sydney? Are you there?" I ended the call without saying goodbye. The next morning, I was at Guy's office at 8 a.m. sharp, my phone full of recordings and my laptop loaded with screenshots. Guy, I need to understand something about paragraph 12. He looked up from the contract he'd been reviewing. The postnatal involvement clause? Yes, walk me through it. Guy flipped to page 12 of the contract. If the intended parents engage in behavior that constitutes emotional abuse or breach of the familial relationship, you have the right to petition for continued involvement in the child's life, including potential custody arrangements. What constitutes emotional abuse? Systematic dehumanization, isolation from family relationships, treating you as hired help rather than family, attempting to sever your relationship with the child. He looked up at me. Why? What's been happening? I opened my laptop and started playing the recordings. Guy's expression grew darker with each conversation. Sydney, he said when the last recording ended, they just handed you everything you need to invoke paragraph 12. What does that mean? Exactly. It means they might have just lost their baby. The contractions started at 3 a.m. on a Tuesday. I called Vera first, like we'd planned. She answered on the second ring, instantly alert. Is it time? I think so. They're about 6 minutes apart. Oh my God, okay. Don't move. Clyde and I are coming to get you right now. Have you called the hospital? Not yet. I wanted to... Don't call anyone else. We'll handle everything. Just breathe. She hung up before I could respond. I sat on the edge of my bed, timing contractions and waiting. My recording phone was charging on the nightstand. Ready. They arrived 20 minutes later, Vera practically vibrating with excitement, and Clyde looking like he was heading into a board meeting. How are you feeling? Are they getting stronger? Did you pack the hospital bag we made? Vera fired questions at me, while Clyde loaded my overnight bag into their car. I'm okay. Yes, they're stronger. And yes, I have the bag. Perfect. Oh God, I can't believe this is happening. Today we meet our daughter. In the car, Vera was on her phone immediately. Jennifer, it's happening. We're heading to the hospital now. Yes, I know it's early, but I wanted you to know. Can you call the photographer? I want her on standby. Photographer? I asked between contractions. Just for a few shots, Vera said, covering her phone. Nothing invasive. I want to document this moment. Clyde caught my eye in the rearview mirror. We've also arranged for a private room, more comfortable for everyone. At the hospital, things moved fast. The nurses were efficient and kind, but I could see them exchanging glances as Vera took charge of everything. She's our surrogate, Vera announced to anyone who would listen. This is our baby. And you are? Asked Dr. Martinez, the attending physician. The mother, Vera said firmly. Vera Martinez, this is my husband, Clyde. Dr. Martinez looked at me. And you're Sydney? Yes. How are you feeling, Sydney? Before I could answer, Vera jumped in. She's been having contractions for about an hour. They're getting stronger. I'd like to hear from Sydney, Dr. Martinez said gently. They're about 4 minutes apart now, I said. Pretty intense. Let's get you settled and see how you're progressing. The next few hours were a blur of medical checks, increasingly painful contractions, and Vera's constant commentary. She'd set up a whole command center in the corner of the room. Phone chargers, snacks, a ring light for photos. Babe, can you get a shot of me holding Sydney's hand? She asked Clyde, who was dutifully taking pictures. This is such a beautiful moment of sisterhood. I was in the middle of a contraction and couldn't speak, but I managed to turn my recording phone on. Actually, said Nurse Patricia, we need to focus on Sydney right now. She's in active labour. Of course, Vera said. But this is such an important day for our family. I just want to capture it. Your family? Nurse Patricia asked. Yes, we're adopting our daughter today, Clyde said smoothly. I caught Nurse Patricia's eye and shook my head slightly. She frowned, but didn't say anything. Around noon, Jennifer arrived with flowers and a professional photographer. I brought Madison, Jennifer announced. She does all the best birth photography in the city. Ma'am, Nurse Patricia said firmly, we can't have a photographer in the delivery room. She's not going in the delivery room, Vera said. Just for some shots in the hallway, maybe some candid moments. Candid moments of what? I asked through gritted teeth. Of us becoming parents? Vera said, like it was obvious. Dr. Martinez appeared in the doorway. Sydney, you're at 8 centimeters. We're going to move you to delivery soon. Finally! Vera clapped her hands. Jennifer, can you live tweet this? I want everyone to know our daughter is almost here. Vera, I said, my voice strained. Can we please just focus on the birth? I am focused. This is the most important day of my life. What about me? The words came out louder than I intended. This is happening to my body. Sydney, don't be selfish, Jennifer said with a laugh. This isn't about you. Nurse Patricia stepped between us. Actually, it is about Sydney. She's the patient here. She's the surrogate, Clyde corrected. We're the parents. I understand the arrangement, Nurse Patricia said carefully, but Sydney is my patient, and her well-being is my priority. In the delivery room, things got worse. Vera positioned herself right next to the doctor, phone ready. Can I cut the cord? She asked Dr. Martinez. That's typically something the birth mother does, or her partner. I am the mother, Vera said firmly. Vera, I gasped between pushes. Can we please just get through this? Almost there, Sydney, Dr. Martinez encouraged. One more big push. The baby arrived at 2:47 p.m., screaming and perfect. For one beautiful moment, the room was quiet except for her cries. Then Vera started sobbing. She's here! She's really here! Clyde, look at our daughter! The nurse placed the baby on my chest for skin-to-skin contact, and I felt that overwhelming rush of love and protection. Can we get her cleaned up and over to the real parents now? Jennifer asked from the corner where she was filming everything. The real parents? Nurse Patricia's voice was sharp. Sydney did her job, Vera said, reaching for the baby. Now it's time for us to take over. Dr. Martinez looked between us, clearly uncomfortable. Sydney, how are you feeling? Exhausted, I said, holding the baby closer. But good. Great, Clyde said. So we can transfer her now? Transfer her? Dr. Martinez asked. To us, Vera said impatiently. We are taking her home. There are procedures to follow, Dr. Martinez said slowly. Paperwork, medical clearances. We have a contract, Clyde said, pulling out his phone. Everything's been arranged. I looked down at the baby in my arms, then at my recording phone on the bedside table, still running. Actually, I said quietly, I think we need to call my lawyer. The room went dead silent. Your lawyer? Vera's voice was dangerous. Sydney, what are you talking about? I'm talking about paragraph 12. Clyde's face went white. Sydney, don't be ridiculous. Guy? I said into my phone. It's time. Guy arrived 45 minutes later with a briefcase and 2 other people I didn't recognize. "Sydney," he said, nodding to me before turning to Vera and Clyde. "Mr. and Mrs. Martinez-Black. I'm Guy Dawson, Sydney's legal counsel." "What the hell is this about?" Clyde demanded. "We have a contract." "Yes, you do," Guy said calmly, "and I'm here to discuss your breach of that contract." Vera's face was flushed red. "Breach? We haven't breached anything. Sydney is being paid exactly what we agreed on." "The payment was never the issue," Guy said, opening his briefcase. "The issue is your systematic violation of the familial relationship clauses." "What familial relationship clauses?" Jennifer piped up from the corner, still holding her phone. Guy pulled out a thick folder. "Paragraph 12, subsection A through F. Would you like me to read them aloud?" "This is ridiculous," Clyde said. "Sydney, call off your lawyer. You're being emotional." "I'm being emotional." I shifted the baby in my arms. "You've spent months treating me like hired help, and now I'm emotional?" "Sydney, please," Vera's voice cracked. "Don't do this. Not today. This is supposed to be the happiest day of our lives." "It was supposed to be happy for me too," I said quietly. "But you made sure it wasn't." Dr. Martinez stepped forward. "I'm sorry, but I need to understand what's happening here. There seems to be some confusion about custody arrangements." "There's no confusion," Clyde said firmly. "We have a surrogacy contract. Sydney carried our baby, and now we're taking her home." "Actually," Guy said, "there's significant confusion. Sydney, may I?" I nodded, and Guy pulled out his phone. "This is a recording from last Thursday," he announced to the room. "I'm going to play just a small portion." Vera's voice filled the room. "You're providing a service, a very important service, but still a service." Then Clyde. "Once she's born, your job is done. We'll transfer your payment, and everyone can move on with their lives." Vera again. "You're just carrying her." The room went silent. Jennifer had stopped recording. "That's taken out of context," Vera said weakly. "I have 17 hours of recordings," Guy said. "Would you like to hear more?" 17 hours? Clyde's voice was strangled. Guy nodded to one of the people he'd brought with him. "This is Sarah Chen from Child Protective Services, and this is Detective Rodriguez from the Family Court Liaison Office." "Child Protective Services?" Vera shrieked. "Are you insane? We're not abusing anyone." "Emotional abuse is still abuse," Sarah said calmly. "And based on the evidence Mr. Dawson has provided, there are serious concerns about the welfare of this child." "What evidence?" Clyde demanded. Guy opened his folder. Text messages referring to Sydney as the help, recordings of you calling her an incubator, documentation of you planning to cut off all contact between Sydney and the child immediately after birth, witness statements from hospital staff about your behavior today. Witness statements? Vera looked around wildly. Nurse Patricia stepped forward. "I've been documenting everything since you arrived. The way you've been treating Sydney, the things you've said about her not being the real mother, your friend calling her an incubator." "You were eavesdropping?" Jennifer accused. "I was doing my job," Nurse Patricia said firmly. "Protecting my patient." Dr. Martinez cleared his throat. "I've also filed a report. The behavior I've witnessed today is concerning, to say the least." "This is insane," Clyde said. "Sydney, tell them this is all a misunderstanding." I looked down at the baby, who was sleeping peacefully in my arms. "Is it a misunderstanding, Clyde? Because I have recordings of you saying my job would be done after the birth, that I should disappear from your lives. We never said disappear, Vera protested. Guy pulled out his phone again. Would you like me to play the recording where you discuss clean breaks and moving on? Stop, Vera said quickly. Just stop. Sarah stepped forward. Based on the evidence presented, we are placing a temporary hold on the discharge of this infant pending a full investigation. You can't do that, Clyde shouted. She's our baby. Actually, we can, Detective Rodriguez said. And we are. Sydney. Vera turned to me, tears streaming down her face. Please, you can't do this to us. I'm your sister. Now I'm your sister? I asked. 5 minutes ago, I was just the surrogate whose job was done. I didn't mean it like that. You meant it exactly like that. I looked at Guy. What happens now? Now we go to court, Guy said. The judge will review all the evidence and determine what's in the best interest of the child. The best interest? Clyde's voice was getting higher. We're her parents. We planned for her. We paid for her. You paid for a service, I interrupted. Remember? That's what you kept telling me. Jennifer finally found her voice. Vera, maybe we should call your lawyer. Yes, Vera said frantically. We need our lawyer. This is all just a big misunderstanding. Your lawyer will receive copies of all the evidence, Guy said. I suggest you review paragraph 12 very carefully, particularly the sections about emotional abuse and breach of familial trust. What does that mean? Vera demanded. Guy closed his briefcase. It means you might have just lost your daughter. The baby stirred in my arms, making a small sound. I looked down at her perfect little face, then back at Vera. You know what the saddest part is? I said quietly. I would have given her to you gladly. All you had to do was treat me like family. Vera's sobs echoed through the room as Guy led me toward the door. Where are you taking her? Clyde called after us. Somewhere she'll be treated with respect, I said, without turning around. Sydney! Vera's voice was desperate. Please, she's my baby. I stopped at the doorway and looked back one last time. No, Vera. She's mine. The courtroom was packed 3 days later. I sat at the plaintiff's table with Guy, holding baby Emma. I'd finally given her a name. Across the aisle, Vera and Clyde huddled with their team of 3 lawyers, whispering frantically. Judge Williams looked tired already, and we hadn't even started. This is highly unusual, she said, flipping through the case file. Mr. Dawson, you're claiming breach of contract based on emotional abuse. Yes, Your Honor. The defendants systematically dehumanized my client, treating her as hired help rather than family, in direct violation of the familial relationship clauses they agreed to. Vera's lead attorney, a sharp-looking woman named Ms. Foster, stood up. Your Honor, this is a clear case of a surrogate getting cold feet and trying to keep a baby that isn't legally hers. The contract is ironclad. Actually, Guy said, the contract includes specific protections that my clients insisted on, protections that the defendants laughed off and ignored. Judge Williams held up her hand. I want to hear the evidence. Mr. Dawson, you may proceed. Guy stood and pressed play on the courtroom's audio system. Vera's voice filled the room. You're providing a service. A very important service, but still a service. Then Clyde. Your job is done. We'll transfer your payment and everyone can move on with their lives. The judge's eyebrows rose. This is from when? 3 days before the birth, Your Honor. There are 16 more hours of similar recordings. Objection, Ms. Foster said. These recordings were made without consent. In a one-party consent state, Guy countered. Perfectly legal. Continue, Mr. Dawson. Guy played more clips. Jennifer calling me an incubator. Vera planning to cut me out completely. Clyde discussing clean breaks. Your Honor, Guy said, Paragraph 12 of the contract specifically states that if the intended parents breach the familial relationship by treating the birth mother as hired help rather than family, she retains rights to the child. Judge Williams looked at the contract. This is quite detailed. Who drafted this? I did, Your Honor. I insisted on protections because I was concerned about exactly what happened here. Ms. Foster stood up. Your Honor, family dynamics can be complicated during pregnancy. My clients were simply trying to establish boundaries. Boundaries? I said, before Guy could stop me. They called me an incubator. Ms. Martinez, Judge Williams said gently, please let your attorney speak for you. Actually, Your Honor, Guy said, I'd like to call Sydney to testify. I handed Emma to the court-appointed guardian and walked to the witness stand. The courtroom was dead quiet. Sydney, Guy said, why did you offer to carry your sister's baby? Because I love her. I thought it would bring us closer together. I wanted to give her the family she'd always dreamed of. Did you ask for money? No. I specifically said I didn't want any payment. This was supposed to be a gift. When did things change? I looked at Vera, who was staring at her hands. Around the 4th month. She started treating me like an employee instead of her sister. Can you give us an example? She'd text me orders instead of asking how I was feeling. She scheduled appointments without checking my availability. She told people I was just the surrogate instead of her sister. How did that make you feel? Like I didn't matter. Like I was just a vessel for their baby instead of a person. Ms. Foster stood for cross-examination. Ms. Martinez, you signed a contract agreeing to carry this baby, correct? Yes. And you were being paid $50,000? Against my wishes. I never wanted money. But you took it. They put it in the contract without asking me. I found out at a doctor's appointment. You could have refused the money. I tried. They said it was for tax purposes, and I had no choice. Ms. Foster held up her phone. I have screenshots of text messages where you refer to your baby and your pregnancy. Isn't it true that you got attached and decided you wanted to keep the child? I got attached to my niece, yes, but I would have given her to Vera if she'd treated me with basic respect. Basic respect? Like remembering I'm her sister, not her employee. Judge Williams called for a recess. In the hallway, Vera cornered me. Sydney, please, she begged. I'm sorry. I know I messed up, but she's my daughter. I've been planning for her for years. You've been planning to use me for years, I said. There's a difference. That's not true. I love you. You love what I can do for you. That's not the same thing. Clyde appeared beside her. Sydney, be reasonable. We can work something out. Visitation, holidays. Now you want to negotiate. I laughed bitterly. 3 days ago you wanted me to disappear forever. We were emotional. People say things they don't mean. 17 hours of recordings, Clyde. That's not emotional. That's systematic. When court resumed, Judge Williams looked grim. I've reviewed all the evidence, she said. The recordings, the text messages, the witness statements from hospital staff. This is one of the most clear-cut cases of emotional abuse I've seen in a surrogacy arrangement. Vera started crying. Clyde put his arm around her. However, the judge continued, the welfare of the child is paramount. Ms. Martinez, are you prepared to care for this baby? Yes, Your Honor. Mr. and Mrs. Martinez Black, you have visitation rights pending a full custody hearing in 30 days, but primary custody goes to Sydney Martinez. The gavel came down like thunder. Vera's wail echoed through the courtroom. You can't do this. She's my baby. I stood up, Emma in my arms, and looked at my sister one last time. You made your choice, Vera. You chose to see me as the help instead of your sister. Now live with the consequences. As I walked out of the courtroom, reporters were already gathering outside. Jennifer was live streaming from the hallway, crying about the injustice of it all. I didn't stop to talk to any of them. I just held Emma closer and kept walking toward our new life. Behind me, I could hear Vera screaming my name. I didn't look back. The custody hearing was scheduled for a Tuesday morning in October. I walked into the courthouse, carrying Emma in her car seat, Tegan beside me for moral support. The media circus had died down, but a few reporters still lingered outside. Sydney, any comment on your sister's latest petition? One called out. I kept walking. Guy met us at the security checkpoint. How are you feeling? He asked, taking Emma's diaper bag. Ready, I said. Is their whole legal team here? Just Ms. Foster today. I think they're running out of money. Inside the courtroom, Vera and Clyde sat alone at their table. No Jennifer this time, no entourage. Vera looked like she'd aged years in the past month. When she saw Emma, her face crumpled. Judge Williams entered, and we all stood. Be seated. This is the final custody hearing for baby Martinez Black. Mr. Dawson, has your client's position changed? No, Your Honor. Sydney Martinez seeks full custody with supervised visitation for the biological father. Ms. Foster? Your Honor, my clients have completed court-ordered counseling and wish to present new evidence of their fitness as parents. What new evidence? Ms. Foster looked uncomfortable. Character witnesses, Your Honor, and an apology. Judge Williams raised an eyebrow. An apology. Vera stood up shakily. Your Honor, may I speak? You may. Vera walked to the center of the courtroom, her hands trembling. Sydney, I've had a month to think about what I did, what we did. I kept my expression neutral, Emma sleeping peacefully in my arms. I treated you horribly, Vera continued, her voice breaking. I was so desperate to be a mother that I forgot you were my sister. I forgot you were a person. Ms. Martinez Black? Judge Williams interrupted. Are you addressing the court or your sister? Both, Your Honor. I need Sydney to know that I understand now. I understand what I took from her, what I tried to take. Clyde stood up beside her. Your Honor, we've both been in therapy. We realize now that our behavior was unacceptable. And what exactly have you realized? Judge Williams asked. That we treated Sydney like a commodity instead of family, Clyde said quietly. That we tried to erase her from her own pregnancy. That we... He paused, looking at me. That we broke something that can't be fixed. The courtroom was silent except for Emma's soft breathing. Sydney, Vera said, turning to face me fully. I know you'll never forgive me. I wouldn't forgive me either. But please, she's all I have left. All you have left? I asked, speaking for the first time. My marriage is over, Vera said simply. Clyde filed for divorce last week. Mom won't speak to me. Cameron barely returns my calls. I lost my job because of the media attention. I lost everything. I looked at Clyde. Is that true? He nodded. I can't live with what we did, what I did. I enabled all of it. Your Honor, Guy said, my client would like to make a statement. I stood up, still holding Emma. Vera, you didn't lose everything because of the media or the court case. You lost everything because you chose to treat me like garbage. Vera flinched, but didn't look away. For months, I begged you to remember I was your sister. I begged you to treat me with basic human decency, and you laughed at me. I know, Vera whispered. You called me an incubator. You planned to cut me out of Emma's life completely. You made me feel like nothing. I know. So here's what's going to happen, I said, my voice steady. I'm keeping Emma. She's my daughter now, legally and in every way that matters. Vera's face crumpled, but I wasn't finished. But, I continued, she deserves to know where she came from, so you can see her. Once a month, supervised visits. Not because you deserve it, but because she might want to know her biological mother someday. Sydney, Vera breathed. And Clyde gets nothing. He's not her father in any way that counts. He made that clear when he called this a business transaction. Clyde nodded, tears in his eyes. That's fair. Judge Williams looked between us. Ms. Martinez, you're willing to allow supervised visitation? Yes, Your Honor, but with conditions. No social media posts about Emma. No introducing her to new boyfriends or girlfriends. No gifts that cost more than $20. And if Vera ever treats me with disrespect again, the visits stop permanently. Ms. Martinez Black, do you agree to these terms? Vera nodded frantically. Yes, anything. Then it's settled. Full custody to Sydney Martinez. Supervised monthly visitation for Vera Martinez Black. No parental rights for Clyde Martinez Black. The gavel came down with finality. As people filed out of the courtroom, Vera approached me hesitantly. Sydney, thank you. I don't deserve this kindness. You're right, I said, adjusting Emma in my arms. You don't deserve it, but Emma might want to know her story someday, and I won't be the one who kept that from her. Can I see her? Just for a second? I looked down at Emma, then back at Vera. You can look, but don't touch. You haven't earned that yet. Vera peered at Emma's sleeping face, tears streaming down her cheeks. She's beautiful. Yes, she is. She looks like you did as a baby. I know. Vera stepped back. I'll see you next month. If you follow the rules. As Vera walked away, shoulders slumped in defeat, Tegan appeared beside me. How do you feel? She asked. I looked down at Emma, then around the empty courtroom. Like I finally found my voice. Any regrets? I thought about it for a moment. I regret that it came to this. I regret that Emma will grow up knowing her biological mother tried to erase me, but I don't regret fighting for us. Good, Tegan said, because you won more than custody today. What do you mean? You won your self-respect back. That's something nobody can ever take away from you again. Outside the courthouse, a reporter approached us one last time. Sydney, what's your message to other women in similar situations? I stopped and looked directly into the camera. Know your worth, document everything, and never ever let anyone treat you like you're disposable, family or not. Emma stirred in my arms, opening her eyes for the first time that day. She looked right at me, and I smiled. "Come on, baby girl," I whispered. "Let's go home." The email arrived on a Tuesday morning, and I nearly choked on my coffee when I saw the sender's name. Savannah Hopkins, my sister, the one who hadn't spoken to me in 18 years. My name is Quinn, and I'm about to tell you the most twisted story of karma you've ever heard. But first, let me take you back to the day that changed everything. The day my own sister humiliated me in front of our entire family. It was Gianna's christening. My niece, barely 3 months old, wrapped in white lace that cost more than my rent. I'd driven 4 hours to be there, wearing my best dress, which, let's be honest, was a clearance rack special from Target. I was 20, broke, and working 2 jobs just to keep my head above water. I glanced at it and felt my stomach drop. "What?" Maximus asked. "It's from the board. Presley wants to sit in on the scholarship interviews this year. She's been pushing for more oversight of the selection process." "Presley Hunt? The one who's been questioning your methods?" "That's the one." I rubbed my temples. Presley was brilliant, ethical to a fault, and had been making noise about transparency in our selection process for months. Having her there would complicate everything. "This is a sign, Quinn. Step back. Let the normal process handle this." "No." I stood up and walked to the window overlooking the city. "I've waited 18 years for this moment. I'm not backing down now." "Then at least tell me what you're really planning." I turned back to him. "I'm going to interview them, both of them. Savannah will have to sit there and watch me decide her daughter's future, not knowing who I am until the very last second. And when she realizes, then she'll understand what it feels like to be powerless, to have someone else decide you're not good enough." Maximus was quiet for a long moment. What if the kid really deserves it? What if she's nothing like her mother? Then she'll have to live with the consequences of her mother's choices, just like I did. My assistant knocked on the door. "Ms. Quinn, I have the interview schedule ready. Should I send the confirmations?" "Yes. Schedule the Hopkins interview for Friday afternoon, and make sure to copy both the student and the parent on the confirmation." "Will do." After she left, Maximus shook his head. "You're making a mistake." "Maybe. But it's my mistake to make." He stood up to leave, then paused at the door. "For what it's worth, I hope you get what you're looking for. I just hope you can live with it afterward." Alone in my office, I pulled up Gianna's social media profiles. Her Instagram was full of typical teenage stuff. Friends, school events, college prep stress. But there were also photos of her volunteering at a food bank, tutoring younger kids, organizing a clothing drive. Her Twitter was more revealing. Tweets about social justice, student debt, the importance of education, and then, buried in her timeline from 6 months ago, "Sometimes I wonder what it would be like to have extended family who actually cared, but I guess some people only show up when they need something." I stared at that tweet for a long time. Was she talking about me? About the family members who disappeared after the christening drama? My phone rang. Unknown number. "Quinn Max speaking." "Quinn, it's Savannah." My blood turned to ice. Her voice was exactly the same, but smaller somehow. Less confident. "Savannah." I kept my voice neutral. "It's been a while." 18 years. She laughed nervously. "I know this is awkward, but I wanted to reach out. I heard through the grapevine that you're doing well, and I wanted to say, I hope you're happy." "I am very happy." "Good, that's good." A pause. "I also wanted to ask, Gianna applied for a scholarship with the Morrison Foundation. I know it's a long shot, but if you happen to know anyone there, or if you could put in a good word." The audacity was breathtaking. After 18 years of silence, She was asking me for a favor. "I'll see what I can do," I said. "Really? Oh, Quinn, thank you. You have no idea what this means to us. Things have been difficult lately." "I'm sure they have. Maybe we could get coffee sometime, catch up properly?" "Maybe. I'll be in touch." I hung up and immediately called my assistant back. "Change of plans. I want the Hopkins interview moved to tomorrow, and I want it scheduled for the main conference room, the one with the big windows and the foundation logo on the wall." "Should I notify the other board members?" "Especially Presley. Tell her I want her there for this one specifically." After she left, I sat back in my chair and smiled for the first time in days. Tomorrow, my sister would walk into my conference room, see my name on the wall, and realize exactly who held her daughter's future in their hands. The girl who wasn't good enough to be a godmother was about to become the most important person in their lives, and they had no idea what was coming. I spent the evening diving deep into their lives through social media, and what I found was fascinating. Savannah's Facebook was a carefully curated highlight reel, family vacations to modest beach towns instead of Europe. Gianna's academic achievements, posted with pride, but always with subtle hints about financial strain. "So proud of my daughter for earning this academic award. Every little bit helps with college costs." Her LinkedIn told a different story. 3 job changes in 5 years. Her current position at a mid-level marketing firm was a far cry from the executive role she'd held when she dismissed me at the christening. But it was Gianna's profiles that really caught my attention. The girl was genuinely impressive. Honor roll every semester, debate team captain, volunteer coordinator for multiple charities. Her college essay, attached to the application, was about breaking cycles of family dysfunction and creating your own path. Interesting reading? I looked up to find Maximus in my doorway with 2 cups of coffee. "She's not what I expected," I admitted, accepting the cup. "The daughter?" "Both of them, actually. Savannah's not the same person who humiliated me 18 years ago. She seems humbled." "And that bothers you?" "It complicates things." Maximus sat down. "I did some digging of my own. Savannah's husband lost his job 2 years ago. They had to sell their house, move into a rental. Gianna's been working part-time at a grocery store to help with expenses. You're trying to make me feel sorry for them." "I'm trying to give you the full picture before you do something you can't take back." My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Ms. Quinn, this is Catherine. I heard through family channels that you might be involved with the Morrison Foundation. We should talk. I have information about Savannah that might interest you." I showed Maximus the message. He whistled low. "Catherine, the godmother." "The very same." I typed back quickly. "I'm listening." Her response came immediately. "Not over text. Can we meet? I'm in the city tomorrow morning." "This is getting messy," Maximus said. "Or interesting." I agreed to meet Catherine at a coffee shop downtown before the interview. The next morning, I spotted Catherine immediately. She'd aged well, expensive highlights, designer clothes, the kind of polished look that screamed success. She was already seated when I arrived, scrolling through her phone with manicured nails. "Quinn." She stood and air-kissed me like we were old friends. "You look amazing. Success suits you." "Catherine, you said you had information about Savannah?" She waited until I ordered my coffee before leaning forward conspiratorially. "I know you're behind the Morrison Foundation. I also know Savannah has no idea." "How did you—" "I make it my business to know things. The question is, what are you planning to do about her daughter's application?" "That's between me and my foundation." Catherine smiled. "Here's what you should know. Savannah didn't just betray you at the christening. She's been playing games with family members for years. When my mother was sick, Savannah convinced her to change her will, cutting out several cousins who'd been helping with care. "Quinn, we need to talk," Savannah had said, pulling me aside while everyone else mingled with champagne and tiny sandwiches I couldn't afford to bring. "What's up?" I'd asked, genuinely excited. I thought she was going to ask me to be Gianna's godmother. We'd talked about it before, how special it would be, how I'd always be there for her daughter. Instead, Savannah looked me up and down with this expression I'll never forget. Pity mixed with embarrassment. "We've decided to ask Catherine to be the godmother instead." The words hit me like a slap. Catherine, our cousin who barely knew Savannah, who lived 3 states away and showed up to family events twice a year with designer handbags and stories about her latest vacation. "I don't understand," I'd whispered. "She told my mother they were only interested in her money." "And you know this how?" "Because I was one of the cousins she tried to cut out. Luckily, I had a good lawyer." Catherine sipped her latte. "The point is, your sister has a pattern of manipulating family situations to her advantage. The christening wasn't personal, Quinn. It was strategic." "What do you want, Catherine?" "I want to make sure justice is served. Savannah needs to learn that actions have consequences." "And if I don't play along?" Catherine's smile turned cold. "Then I might have to share some interesting information about potential conflicts of interest in your foundation's selection process. The press loves a good nepotism scandal." I stood up. "Are you threatening me?" "I'm offering you an alliance. We both want the same thing." "Do we? Don't we?" Catherine gathered her purse. "Think about it, Quinn. This is your chance to show Savannah exactly what it feels like to be dismissed by family." After she left, I sat in the coffee shop for another 20 minutes, my mind racing. Catherine's information changed things. If Savannah really had been manipulating family members for years, then maybe what happened to me wasn't an isolated incident. My phone rang. "Maximus. Where are you? The interview is in an hour." "On my way. Is Presley there?" "Just arrived. She's asking a lot of questions about why you're personally handling this interview." "What did you tell her?" "That you're being thorough. But Quinn, she's suspicious. She knows something's up." I hung up and headed back to the office. In the elevator, I got one more text, this one from Savannah. "Thank you again for putting in a good word. Gianna is so nervous but excited. This opportunity could change her life." The elevator doors opened on my floor, and I walked toward the conference room, where my sister and niece were waiting. Through the glass walls, I could see them sitting at the long table. Savannah in a department store suit that had seen better days, Gianna in a simple dress, both of them looking around at the expensive artwork and polished surfaces with obvious awe. Presley intercepted me in the hallway. "Quinn, I need to ask you something before we go in there." "What? Do you have any personal connection to these applicants? Because if you do, you need to recuse yourself from this decision." I looked through the glass at Savannah, who was smoothing down Gianna's hair with maternal affection. For a moment, she looked exactly like the big sister I'd once adored. "No personal connection," I said. "Just another scholarship interview." Presley studied my face. "Okay, but I'll be watching closely." I straightened my shoulders and walked toward the conference room door. It was time to face my sister, and she still had no idea what was coming. I opened the conference room door and stepped inside. "Good afternoon. I'm Quinn, the Foundation Director. Thank you for coming in today." The moment Savannah looked up, her face went completely white. Her mouth opened, then closed, like a fish gasping for air. Gianna glanced between us, confused. "Mom, are you okay?" Savannah's voice cracked. "I'm fine, sweetheart." But she wasn't fine. Her hands were shaking as she reached for her water glass. Presley entered behind me, carrying a folder. "This is Presley, one of our board members. She'll be observing today." I sat down across from them, maintaining perfect professional composure. "Gianna, congratulations on your academic achievements. Your application is quite impressive." "Thank you," Gianna said, her voice steady despite the obvious tension in the room. "I'm grateful for the opportunity to interview." "Tell me about your volunteer work at the food bank," I said, opening her file. As Gianna spoke about serving meals and organizing donations, I watched Savannah from the corner of my eye. She kept staring at me like she was seeing a ghost. "That's wonderful," I said, when Gianna finished. "And your mother has been supportive of your community service?" "Absolutely. She always taught me that we have a responsibility to help others, especially when we've been blessed with opportunities." "Blessed with opportunities," I repeated. "Interesting phrase. Can you elaborate?" Gianna shifted slightly. "Well, I know not everyone has access to good schools or supportive families. My mum always said we should be grateful for what we have and use it to lift others up." "Your mother sounds very wise." I turned to Savannah. "Would you like to add anything about your daughter's character?" Savannah cleared her throat. "Gianna she's everything to me. She's worked so hard for this. She deserves this chance." "Everyone deserves a chance," I said. "The question is whether they're prepared to make the most of it." Presley leaned forward. "Gianna, how do you handle disappointment? Can you tell us about a time when something didn't go your way?" "Last year, I wasn't selected for the state debate championship team. I was devastated because I'd worked so hard for it." Gianna's voice was thoughtful. "But my mom helped me see that sometimes rejection is redirection. I used that time to focus on my community service instead, which led to organizing the school's biggest charity drive ever." "Your mother helped you through that disappointment?" I asked. "She did. She told me that sometimes people make decisions based on things that have nothing to do with your worth or abilities. She said the important thing is to keep moving forward and prove them wrong through your actions." The irony was suffocating. I looked at Savannah, who was staring at her hands. "That's excellent advice," Presley said. "What about family relationships? How important is family loyalty to you?" "Very important," Gianna said immediately. "Family is everything. Even when things get complicated or people make mistakes, you stick together. You support each other." "Even when family members let you down?" I asked. Gianna hesitated. I think everyone makes mistakes. The question is whether they learn from them and try to do better. And if they don't, if they continue to make the same hurtful choices?" "Quinn," Presley said quietly, "these questions seem quite personal." "I'm trying to understand her values," I replied. "Character matters for our scholarship recipients." Savannah finally spoke up. "Could I have a moment to speak with you privately?" "Mom, no," Gianna said quickly. "I can handle this." "It's fine," I said. "Presley, would you mind showing Gianna our Student Resource Center? It's just down the hall." After they left, Savannah and I sat in silence for a long moment. "I can't believe it's you," she whispered. "Surprise." "Quinn, I need you to know." "Know what? That you're sorry? That you've changed? That you didn't mean to humiliate me in front of our entire family?" "I was young and stupid and—" "You were 23, old enough to know better." Savannah's eyes filled with tears. "I know I hurt you. I know I made a terrible mistake, but please don't punish Gianna for my failures." "Punish her? I'm giving her a fair interview." "This isn't fair and you know it. You're here because you want revenge. I'm here because your daughter applied for a scholarship from my foundation. The foundation I built from nothing while you were playing Happy Families with Catherine." "Catherine?" Savannah looked confused. "Look, Quinn, you're sweet, but you're not exactly stable. You're always struggling, always asking for help. Catherine has her life together. She can provide for Gianna if something happens to us." The room went quiet around us. Not actually quiet. People were still talking, laughing, celebrating. But for me, everything stopped. I felt every eye in the room watching, waiting to see how the poor sister would react to being publicly dismissed. "You're choosing her because she has money," I said, my voice barely audible. "I'm choosing her because she's responsible, because she can offer Gianna opportunities you can't, because she won't show up to important events looking like—" Savannah gestured at my outfit, her nose wrinkling slightly. "What does she have to do with this?" "She reached out to me, told me some interesting stories about your family manipulation over the years. Catherine is lying. She's been trying to cause problems in our family for years, because she's jealous that—" "That what? That you chose her over me? That worked out well for you, didn't it?" Savannah flinched. "I made a mistake, Quinn. A huge, terrible mistake. But I've paid for it. We've all paid for it." "Have you? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you got exactly what you wanted. A successful godmother with money and connections. How did that work out when you needed help these past few years?" "She wasn't there," Savannah admitted quietly. "When things got bad, when we lost the house, when Gianna needed help with college applications, Catherine was nowhere to be found." "Shocking. I know you hate me. I deserve that. But Gianna doesn't. She's a good kid, Quinn. She's nothing like I was at that age." The door opened, and Presley returned with Gianna. "Everything okay?" Presley asked, looking between us. "Perfect," I said, standing up. "I think we have everything we need for our decision." Gianna stood as well. "Thank you for your time. I know you must have many qualified applicants." "We do. You'll hear from us within the week." As they gathered their things, Gianna turned back to me. "Ms. Quinn, I just wanted to say that whatever happened between you and my mom in the past, I hope you can judge me on my own merits. I'm not responsible for anyone else's mistakes." She walked out with quiet dignity, leaving Savannah and me alone again. "She's a good kid," I said. "The best." Savannah's voice was barely a whisper. "Please, Quinn. Please don't let our past destroy her future. I'll be in touch." After they left, Presley closed the door and turned to me. "Want to tell me what that was really about?" "Just a thorough interview." "Bullshit. That girl is your niece, isn't she?" I didn't answer. "Quinn, if you let personal feelings influence this decision, it could destroy everything we've built here. I know exactly what I'm doing." "Do you? Because from where I sat, it looked like you were torturing that woman, and her daughter caught every second of it." I walked to the window, looking out at the city below. "The decision will be made fairly. Will it?" I turned back to her. "You'll have to trust me. That's what I'm afraid of." The next morning, I found Maximus waiting in my office with a grim expression and a stack of newspapers. "We have a problem," he said, dropping the papers on my desk. The headline on the top paper read, "Morrison Foundation under fire, nepotism allegations surface." What the hell is this? Someone leaked information about yesterday's interview. The story broke an hour ago across 3 major outlets. I grabbed the paper and scanned the article. Anonymous sources claiming the foundation's director had personal vendettas against applicant families. Suggestions of ethical violations and conflicts of interest. "Catherine," I said through gritted teeth. "That's what I figured. She's playing both sides." My phone rang. "Presley." "Quinn, we need to talk. Now." "I'm on my way to the office." "I'm already here. Conference room. 5 minutes." She hung up. Maximus shook his head. This is exactly what I was afraid of. In the conference room, Presley was pacing like a caged animal. 3 other board members sat around the table, all looking serious. "Sit down," Presley said. "We need to discuss these allegations." "They're baseless." "Are they?" She slammed a folder on the table. "Because I did some digging after yesterday's interview. Savannah Hopkins is your sister. Gianna is your niece. The same niece you were passed over to be godmother for 18 years ago." The room went dead silent. "You lied to us," board member David said. "You said you had no personal connection." "I said I would handle it fairly." "You manipulated the entire process." Presley's voice rose. "You personally took over the interviews. You scheduled them in the intimidation room. You grilled that poor girl like she was on trial." "She got the same interview as every other applicant." "Bullshit. I was there, Quinn. I saw how you looked at her mother. I saw the questions you asked. That wasn't an interview. It was an interrogation." My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Check your email. K." I opened my email to find a message from Catherine with the subject line, "Interesting photos." Attached were screenshots of old Facebook posts from 18 years ago. Photos from Gianna's christening. Pictures of me leaving the church that day, clearly upset. A photo of Catherine being announced as the godmother, with Savannah beaming beside her. The final attachment was a voice recording. I clicked play. My own voice filled the room. "I hope you get everything you deserve, Savannah." "She recorded me at the christening," I said, stunned. "Who?" Presley demanded. "Catherine, the godmother. She's been planning this." Another email arrived. This one was sent to the entire board. "Dear Morrison Foundation board members," I read aloud, "I feel compelled to share information about potential ethical violations in your scholarship selection process. Your director, Quinn, has been using the foundation to pursue a personal vendetta against her own family members. Attached, you'll find evidence of this conflict of interest, including recorded conversations and photographic evidence of the family dispute that began 18 years ago. I believe the public deserves to know how their donated funds are being used. Sincerely, Catherine Reynolds, concerned citizen." "Jesus Christ," David muttered. "She's trying to destroy us," I said. "No," Presley said coldly. "You already did that. She's just exposing it." My phone rang. Maximus. "Quinn, you need to see the news. Channel 7 is running a story about the foundation. They're interviewing Catherine live." I turned on the conference room TV. Catherine sat across from a news anchor, looking perfectly composed in a navy suit. "The Morrison Foundation has done wonderful work," Catherine was saying, "but the public deserves to know when personal vendettas are influencing how scholarship funds are distributed. This young woman, Gianna, is being denied opportunities because of an 18-year-old family dispute that has nothing to do with her." "And you have evidence of this?" the anchor asked. "I have recordings, photographs, and witness testimony. Quinn has been planning this revenge for years. She built this entire foundation as a way to gain power over the family members who wronged her." "That's not true," I said to the TV. "Isn't it?" Presley asked. "Because from where I'm sitting, it looks exactly like that." The anchor continued. "We reached out to the Morrison Foundation for comment, but they haven't responded. We also attempted to contact the Hopkins family." The screen cut to footage of reporters outside a modest apartment building. Savannah appeared in the doorway, looking exhausted. "I don't want to comment on family matters," she said. "I just want what's best for my daughter." "Mrs. Hopkins, are you saying your sister is using her position to retaliate against you?" "I'm saying my daughter is a good kid who deserves to be judged on her own merits, not on mistakes I made 18 years ago." The reporter pressed. "What mistakes?" Savannah looked directly into the camera. Catherine appeared beside us then, all smiles and expensive perfume. "Quinn, so good to see you. Savannah was just telling me about the godmother situation. I'm so honored she chose someone who can really be there for little Gianna. The smugness in her voice was unmistakable. She knew exactly what was happening, and she was enjoying every second of it. I looked around the room at my family, aunts, uncles, cousins, all of them pretending not to watch while absolutely watching. Some looked sympathetic. Others looked like they agreed with Savannah's choice. "Congratulations," I managed to say to Catherine. Then I turned to my sister. "I hope you get everything you deserve, Savannah." I left that day and never came back. Cut contact with everyone. Changed my phone number. I hurt someone I loved because I was young and stupid and thought money mattered more than family. I've regretted it every day since, but my daughter shouldn't pay for my failures. The TV cut back to Catherine in the studio. "This is exactly why oversight is so important in charitable organizations," she said. "When personal feelings override ethical guidelines, everyone suffers." I turned off the TV. The room was silent, except for the sound of my phone buzzing with calls from reporters. "Quinn," Presley said quietly, "I need you to step down from the scholarship committee. Effective immediately." "You can't." "I can and I am. The board will handle the Hopkins application and all others going forward. This is exactly what Catherine wanted. She's manipulating all of us. Maybe. But that doesn't change the fact that you compromised our integrity." David cleared his throat. "There's something else. The State Attorney General's office called. They're opening an investigation into our selection processes." "An investigation?" Catherine filed a formal complaint, alleging misuse of charitable funds for personal vendettas. My phone rang again. This time it was Gianna. "Miss Quinn? I saw the news. I just wanted to say that I'm withdrawing my application. I don't want to be part of whatever this is between you and my mom." "Gianna, wait. I'm sorry for whatever my mom did to you. But I can't let this destroy your foundation. Too many other kids need these scholarships." She hung up. I looked around the room at the board members, all of them staring at me with disappointment and anger. "I need some air," I said, standing up. "Quinn," Presley called after me, "we're not done here." But I was already walking out the door. In the elevator, I realized Catherine had played this perfectly. She'd gotten her revenge on both Savannah and me, destroyed my reputation, and positioned herself as the ethical whistleblower. And somehow, in all of this, the only person who'd acted with any dignity was the 18-year-old girl I'd been planning to punish for her mother's sins. I drove straight to Savannah's apartment building, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. The reporters were gone, but I could see neighbors peeking through their windows as I walked to the front door. Savannah answered on the first knock, like she'd been waiting. "Quinn, I wondered when you'd show up. We need to talk." She stepped aside to let me in. The apartment was small but clean, with mismatched furniture and family photos covering every surface. Gianna sat at the kitchen table with textbooks spread around her, but she looked up when I entered. "I'll go to my room," she said, starting to gather her books. "No," I said. "Stay. This involves you too." Savannah poured 3 glasses of water and sat down across from me. "I saw the news. Catherine really did a number on both of us." "You knew she was behind this?" "I figured it out when the reporters started asking about recordings from the christening. Catherine always had her phone out that day, taking pictures and videos. I thought she was just being social media obsessed. She played us all." "She played you," Savannah corrected. "I was just collateral damage." Gianna looked between us. "Can someone please explain what actually happened 18 years ago? Because I'm getting bits and pieces from the news, but I want to hear it from you." Savannah sighed. "Your Aunt Quinn was supposed to be your godmother. We'd talked about it, planned it. But then your mother decided I wasn't good enough," I finished. "She chose Catherine instead because Catherine had money, and I didn't." That's not the whole story, Savannah said quietly. What's the rest of it? Catherine offered to pay for Gianna's college fund. A full ride, guaranteed. She said she'd put $50,000 into an account that day if I made her the godmother. The room went silent. Gianna's face went pale. You sold my godmother position? I asked. I was 23 with a newborn and a husband who just lost his job. Catherine dangled financial security in front of me and I took it. Mom, Gianna whispered, please tell me you didn't. I did, and it was the worst mistake of my life. What happened to the money? I asked. Savannah laughed bitterly. There was no money. Catherine strung us along for 2 years with excuses about market conditions and legal paperwork. Finally admitted she'd never intended to follow through. She just wanted to be the godmother for the social status. So you lost me and got nothing in return. I lost everything that mattered and gained nothing. Catherine disappeared from our lives completely after that. She'd show up for big family events, play the perfect godmother for photos, then vanish again. Gianna stood up abruptly. I need some air. Honey, wait. No, Mum, I need to process this. She grabbed her jacket and headed for the door. I'm going for a walk. After she left, Savannah and I sat in uncomfortable silence. She hates me now, Savannah said. She's 18. She'll get over it. Will she? Would you have? I thought about it. Probably not. I tried to call you so many times over the years. I wrote letters I never sent. I wanted to apologize, to explain, but I was too ashamed. And now? Now I'm still ashamed, but I'm also desperate. Not for me, but for her. She's worked so hard, Quinn. She deserves better than this mess. She does. Catherine knew exactly what she was doing when she leaked this story. She wanted to destroy both of us. Why? Because she's been jealous of our family for years. We were always closer, even with our problems. She was the outsider who bought her way in, and she never forgot that. My phone buzzed. A text from Gianna. At the park across the street. Can you come talk to me? Alone. I found her sitting on a bench, staring at the apartment building. Your mom's watching us from the window, I said, sitting beside her. I know. She's been doing that since I was little. Watching, worrying, trying to protect me from things I didn't even know existed. Like me? Like family drama. Like the fact that I had an aunt who disappeared. Like the fact that my godmother was basically a stranger who bought her way into our lives. I'm sorry you're caught in the middle of this. Are you? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you've been planning this for 18 years. I didn't answer. The foundation is real though, right? You've actually helped kids. Thousands of them. Good. Because when I saw the news today, my first thought wasn't about the scholarship. It was about all the other kids who might lose their chance because of this scandal. The foundation will survive. Will it? Because Catherine's pretty convincing on TV. She's making you look like a vindictive person who built a charity just to get revenge on her family. Maybe I am vindictive. Maybe. But you're also someone who's given $50 million to kids who needed it. That has to count for something. We sat in silence for a moment. I withdrew my application, she said. I know. I'm not going to college next year. We can't afford it without the scholarship, and after this mess, no other foundation will touch me. There are other ways, are there? Because my mom's name is all over the news as the sister who betrayed you, and my name is attached to hers. I'm the girl whose family destroyed the Morrison Foundation. You didn't destroy anything, didn't I? Moved across the country. I made myself a promise in that church parking lot, sitting in my beat-up Honda, with tears streaming down my face. I would become someone they couldn't dismiss. Someone they couldn't look down on. Someone who mattered. It took me 18 years. but I did it. Now I'm the founder and CEO of the Morrison Educational Foundation, one of the largest scholarship programs in the country. We've given away over $50 million to underprivileged students. I have a penthouse apartment, a vacation home in the Hamptons, and more money than Savannah ever dreamed of having. And here's the beautiful part. I kept my maiden name for the foundation, Quinn Mack. But I've stayed so far out of the public eye that most people don't know who runs it. If I hadn't applied, none of this would have happened. Catherine would have found another way. Gianna stood up. I need to ask you something, and I want you to be honest. Okay. If none of this had come out, if Catherine hadn't leaked the story, would you have given me the scholarship? I looked at her young face, so earnest and hopeful, despite everything that had happened. I don't know, I said honestly. Thank you for being honest. She started walking back toward the building. That's more than most adults have given me lately. Gianna, wait. She turned back. For what it's worth, you're nothing like your mother was at your age. You're better than all of us. I hope so, she said, because somebody in this family needs to be. The emergency board meeting was scheduled for Monday morning. I arrived early, but the conference room was already full. Presley sat at the head of the table with a stack of legal documents in front of her. Quinn, sit down, she said without looking up. We have a lot to cover. The other board members avoided eye contact. David shuffled papers nervously. Sarah, our treasurer, looked like she hadn't slept in days. The Attorney General's investigation is moving forward, Presley began. They want access to all our records for the past 5 years, every application, every decision, every communication. Fine, we have nothing to hide. Don't we? She slid a folder across the table. This is Catherine's formal complaint. She's alleging that you've been using foundation resources to research and target family members for years. I opened the folder. Inside were printouts of email searches, phone records, even my social media activity from the past month. How did she get these? She hired a private investigator. Apparently she's been building this case for months. Months? How did she even know about the foundation? Sarah spoke up. She's been a small donor for 3 years, $500 annually. Just enough to get on our mailing list and receive annual reports. She's been watching us. She's been watching you, Presley corrected. The question is why? My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Check the news. K. I turned on the TV. Catherine was on another morning show, this time with a panel of ethics experts. The Morrison Foundation has done good work, she was saying. But when personal vendettas override charitable purposes, donors have a right to know. What's your relationship to the foundation director? The host asked. Quinn is my cousin. 18 years ago, there was a family dispute over a christening. Quinn felt slighted and has apparently been planning revenge ever since. And you have evidence of this? I have recordings, documents, witness statements. Quinn built this foundation not out of charitable intent, but as a weapon against her own family. One of the ethics experts leaned forward. That's a serious allegation. If true, it could constitute fraud. Which is why I felt compelled to come forward. The public deserves to know how their donations are being used. I turned off the TV. The room was silent. There's more, Presley said. 3 major donors have already pulled their funding. The Hartwell Foundation is reconsidering their partnership, and the city is reviewing our tax-exempt status. Catherine's destroying everything we've built. No, Quinn. You did that when you let personal feelings override professional judgment. I never used foundation money for personal purposes. You used foundation time, resources, and staff to orchestrate a confrontation with your sister. You manipulated the interview process. You lied to the board about your connections to the applicant. David cleared his throat. There's something else. We've been contacted by several former scholarship recipients. They're asking whether their awards were legitimate or if they were also part of some personal agenda. That's ridiculous. Every scholarship was awarded based on merit. Was it? Presley pulled out another file. Because I've been reviewing your decisions for the past 5 years. There's a pattern of you personally intervening in cases involving family dysfunction, absent parents, sibling rivalry. Those are legitimate factors. Or you've been working through your own family trauma by playing God with other people's lives. The accusation hit like a physical blow. I looked around the table at faces that had once trusted me, respected me. I need to make a statement, I said. The lawyers advised against that. I don't care what the lawyers said. I'm calling a press conference. Quinn, don't. But I was already walking out. 2 hours later, I stood in front of the Morrison Foundation building with a dozen reporters and 3 news cameras pointed at me. I want to address the allegations that have been made against me and this foundation, I began. 18 years ago, I was hurt by a family member's decision. That hurt motivated me to build something meaningful, something that would help other young people achieve their dreams, regardless of their family circumstances. Ms. Quinn, a reporter called out. A reporter. Did you use the foundation to seek revenge against your sister? I used the foundation to help over 3,000 students attend college. I used it to provide $50 million in scholarships to kids who needed them. If that's revenge, then I'm guilty. But you did personally intervene in your niece's application? I did, and I was wrong to do so. My personal feelings compromised my professional judgment. Will you resign? I looked up at the building behind me, at the foundation logo etched in the glass. I built this foundation to help kids like I used to be. Kids who were told they weren't good enough, who were dismissed by people who should have supported them. I won't let my mistakes destroy that mission. So, you're not resigning? I'm stepping down from day-to-day operations while the investigation continues, but I won't abandon the students who depend on us. What about your niece? Will she receive the scholarship? I paused, thinking about Gianna's dignity, her willingness to withdraw her application to protect other students. The board will make that decision based on merit, not family relationships, as it should be. After the press conference, I found Maximus waiting in my office. How bad is it? I asked. Bad, but not fatal. The foundation will survive if we handle this right. And if we don't? Then Catherine wins. She destroys both you and the foundation, and 3,000 future students lose their chance at college. I sat down heavily in my chair. She played this perfectly. She did. The question is, what are you going to do about it? Before I could answer, my assistant knocked on the door. Ms. Quinn, there's someone here to see you. Says it's urgent. Gianna walked into my office, still wearing her grocery store uniform. I came to make you an offer, she said. What kind of offer? I'll do a press conference. I'll tell everyone that you treated me fairly, that the interview was professional, that you shouldn't be blamed for my mother's mistakes 18 years ago. Why would you do that? Because Catherine is using me to destroy something good. The applications come through a complex system, reviewed by committees, processed by staff. The families never know who's really making the decisions. Until now. Because sitting in my inbox was an email from Savannah with the subject line, Scholarship Application, Urgent Financial Need. Attached was Gianna's application. My niece, now 18, applying for a full ride to college. The same niece I wasn't good enough to be godmother to. The irony was so perfect, it made my hands shake. I opened the application and read Savannah's cover letter. To whom it may concern, my daughter Gianna is an exceptional student who deserves this opportunity. Our family has faced unexpected financial hardships, and we're hoping for consideration from your foundation. And because you're not the villain she's making you out to be. What do you want in return? Nothing. I just want the foundation to survive, so other kids can get the help they need. I stared at this 18-year-old girl, who was offering to sacrifice her own reputation to save mine. Gianna, you don't understand what you're offering. This will follow you forever. So will knowing I could have helped and didn't. She was everything I'd once hoped to be. Principled, selfless, brave. And I was about to let her throw herself on a sword I'd forged. No, I said, standing up from my desk. Absolutely not. Gianna looked surprised. But this could save the foundation. At the cost of your future. I won't let you do that. It's my choice. It's a choice you shouldn't have to make. I walked around the desk to face her. I'm the one who created this mess. I'll be the one to fix it. Maximus frowned. Quinn, what are you thinking? I'm thinking Catherine made one mistake. She underestimated how much documentation I keep. I pulled out my phone and called my assistant. Bring me the Catherine Reynolds donor file. Everything we have on her. Quinn, Gianna said, what are you doing? Something I should have done from the beginning. Fighting back with facts instead of emotions. My assistant arrived with a thick folder. I spread the contents across my desk. Donation records, correspondence, event photos. Look at this, I said, pointing to a letter from 2 years ago. Catherine requesting a meeting to discuss expanding her involvement with the foundation. She wanted to be on the board. You turned her down? Maximus asked. We had a full board, but look at her response. I held up another letter. She threatens to reconsider her support if we don't find a place for her. Gianna leaned over to read. She's been planning this for 2 years? Longer. Look at these donation patterns. I pulled out a spreadsheet. She's been timing her donations to coincide with our annual reports. She wanted access to our internal information. My phone rang. Presley. Quinn, you need to see Channel 7. Now. I turned on the TV. Catherine was on another interview, but this time she wasn't alone. A young man sat beside her, maybe 25, wearing an expensive suit. This is my son, Marcus, Catherine was saying. He applied for a Morrison Foundation scholarship 3 years ago and was rejected, despite having perfect grades and extensive community service. And you believe this rejection was personal? The host asked. I believe Quinn has been systematically excluding applicants with family connections to people she perceives as enemies. Marcus nodded. I worked so hard for that scholarship. When I was rejected, my mother told me it was probably because we weren't the right type of family. I stared at the screen. That's not true. I remember his application. He was rejected because he plagiarized his essay. You can prove that? Gianna asked. I can prove everything. I grabbed my laptop and pulled up our database. Marcus Reynolds, application from 3 years ago. Essay flagged by our plagiarism software. Copied from a college admissions blog. Maximus whistled. She's lying on national television. She's been lying about everything. I pulled up more files. Look at this. She's been contacting rejected applicants for months, convincing them they were discriminated against. How many? Dozens. She's been building a case by manipulating people who were legitimately rejected for academic dishonesty, incomplete applications, or missing deadlines. Gianna sat down heavily. She's been using other people's disappointment to fuel her revenge. Just like she used your mother's desperation 18 years ago. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Enjoying the show? You can't win this. Kay. I looked at Gianna and Maximus. Want to help me prove her wrong? An hour later, we were back in front of the Morrison Foundation building. This time, I had backup. Ladies and gentlemen, I began, I want to address the false allegations made by Catherine Reynolds. I held up a stack of documents. These are plagiarism reports, incomplete applications, and academic dishonesty findings for every applicant Ms. Reynolds claims was discriminated against. Every rejection was based on legitimate academic or ethical concerns. A reporter raised her hand. How do we know those documents are legitimate? Because they're independently verified. Maximus stepped forward. We use third-party academic verification services for all applications. Every decision is documented and reviewed. Furthermore, I continued, Ms. Reynolds has been systematically contacting rejected applicants, coaching them to claim discrimination, and building false narratives about our selection process. I pulled out my phone and played a recording. Catherine's voice filled the air. If you say you were discriminated against because of your family background, I can help you get compensation. Quinn has been targeting families like ours for years. Where did you get that recording? A reporter asked. From one of the applicants she contacted, someone who was uncomfortable with her coaching and decided to record their conversation. Gianna stepped forward. I want to make a statement. Gianna, you don't have to. Yes, I do. She looked directly into the cameras. My name is Gianna Hopkins. I'm the niece at the center of this controversy. I want everyone to know that Ms. Quinn treated me fairly and professionally. She asked tough questions, but so did the other board members. The interview was challenging, but appropriate. What about the family history? A reporter called out. My mother made a mistake 18 years ago. She chose money over family, and it cost her a relationship with her sister. But that's not Ms. Quinn's fault, and it's not the foundation's fault. Will you accept the scholarship if it's offered? Gianna looked at me, then back at the cameras. The board will make their decision based on merit. If I'm chosen, I'll be honored. If not, I'll find another way to pay for college. But I won't let anyone use me to destroy something that helps other students. After the press conference, Catherine called me directly. You think you're clever, she said without preamble. I think I'm tired of your games. This isn't over. Yes, it is. Your son's plagiarism is now public record. Your coaching of rejected applicants is documented. Your attempt to buy your way onto our board is in writing. You're done. You can't prove. I can prove everything. Prove. And if you continue this campaign, I'll release all of it. Every lie, every manipulation, every attempt to use other people's pain for your own revenge. The line went quiet for a long moment. You were always too smart for your own good, Catherine said finally, and you were always too greedy for yours. She hung up. 3 days later, the Attorney General's office closed their investigation, finding no evidence of wrongdoing. The major donors restored their funding. The city confirmed our tax-exempt status, and the board voted unanimously to award Gianna the scholarship. I found her at the grocery store where she worked, stocking shelves in the produce section. Congratulations, I said, handing her the acceptance letter. We have no connections or special circumstances to offer, just a brilliant girl who needs a chance. No connections, no special circumstances. If only she knew. I picked up my phone and called my assistant. Cancel my meetings for the rest of the week. I'll be handling the Morrison scholarship interviews personally this year. For the first time in 18 years, I was going to see my sister again, and she had no idea what was coming. You're playing with fire, Quinn. Maximus stood in my office doorway, arms crossed, wearing that expression he got when he thought I was about to do something spectacularly stupid. He'd been my COO for 8 years, and more importantly, my friend. He was the only person who knew the whole story about my family. She read it twice before looking up at me with tears in her eyes. Thank you. You earned it. Fair and square. What happens now? With you and my mom? I don't know. But I know what doesn't happen. I don't let 18-year-old pain control the rest of my life. And Catherine? Catherine learned that some people fight back. Gianna smiled. Good. She needed to learn that. As I walked out of the store, my phone buzzed with a new email. Another scholarship application. This one from a kid in Detroit whose essay started with, "My family doesn't believe in me, but I believe in myself." I smiled and forwarded it to the review committee. Some cycles are worth breaking, others are worth continuing. The Morrison Foundation would keep changing lives, one student at a time, and Catherine Reynolds would have to find a new hobby. "Come in and close the door," I said, not looking up from Gianna's application spread across my desk. He shut the door and sat down across from me. I saw the application flagged in the system. Hopkins. That's not a coincidence, is it? Nope. I slid the papers toward him. My sister's daughter. The niece I wasn't good enough to be godmother to. Maximus picked up the application, scanning it quickly. 4.2 GPA, captain of the debate team, volunteer work at 3 different organizations. She's actually qualified. I know, which makes this complicated. Or simple. I leaned back in my chair. She gets treated like every other applicant. Fair and square. Bullshit. Maximus set the papers down. You didn't personally take over the interview process to be fair. You did it because you want to look your sister in the eye when you crush her daughter's dreams. The accusation hung in the air between us. I wanted to deny it, but Maximus knew me too well. Maybe I just want to see how desperate she is, I said finally. And then what? You get your revenge and destroy an innocent kid's future in the process. Gianna's not innocent. Look at her essay. I flipped to the 3rd page. She writes about how important family loyalty is, how her mother taught her to surround herself with people who add value to her life. Sound familiar? Maximus read the passage, his frown deepening. She's 18, Quinn. She's repeating what she was taught. Exactly. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree. My phone buzzed with a text.
I was 38 years old when I learned that 20 years of backbreaking work means nothing if you're born with the wrong parts between your legs. My name is Brinley, and I've spent half my life keeping the Shepherd family ranch alive. While my brother Caden was off playing college boy and then city businessman, I was here at 5 a.m. checking cattle, mending fences, and studying soil composition reports by lamplight. When the drought hit 3 years running, I was the one who figured out the rotational grazing system that saved our herd. When the bank threatened foreclosure, I was the one who negotiated the payment plan that kept us afloat. But none of that mattered the day we buried my father. I'm sorry, Brinley. Don't be. Is everything still in place? She nodded and opened the folder. The land trust is ironclad. The moment they violate any of the operational standards your grandfather specified, ownership transfers to you automatically. I scanned the documents I'd helped write as a 23-year-old. Grandpa Archie had been thorough. No overgrazing, no subdivision without environmental impact studies, no sale of parcels without unanimous family consent, proper maintenance of all structures and equipment. The list went on for pages. How long do you think it'll take? Cynthia asked. At the rate they're going? Not long. And you're sure about this? Once it's triggered, there's no going back. I thought about Gavin's smirk, about Mom's cold dismissal, about Caden's assumption that he deserved everything I'd worked for. I'm sure. That evening, Krista found me in the barn checking on a sick calf. How's she doing? She asked, scratching the calf's ears. Better. Fever's down. Gavin wants to sell her. I looked up. What? He says sick animals are a liability, bad for efficiency. She's going to be fine. It's just a minor infection. I know that, you know that, but he's got Caden convinced we need to streamline the operation. I stood up, wiping my hands on my jeans. What else? They're talking about selling the South 40. Gavin says it's not productive enough. The South 40. Where Grandpa Archie was buried, where 4 generations of shepherds had grazed their first cattle, where I learned to ride, to rope, to read the weather in the clouds. They can't, I said. Dad would never. Dad's dead, Krista said gently, and Mom's desperate for cash. The funeral expenses, the medical bills from Dad's last year, she's drowning. So she's going to sell our heritage to pay for it. Looks like it. That night I couldn't sleep. I walked out to the porch and sat in Dad's old chair, looking out over the land that had been in our family for over a century, the land that Caden was already planning to carve up and sell off piece by piece. My phone buzzed. A text from Krista. Gavin's drunk. He's bragging about some big land deal. Says he's found a buyer for 3 parcels. 3 parcels. That would trigger the trust immediately. Any sale without unanimous consent was a violation. I texted back, which parcels? South, 40, the creek bottom and the hill pasture. Says the buyer wants to build some kind of resort. A resort on our ranch. On the land where my great-great-grandfather had built the first cabin, where my grandfather had taught me to love the soil and the seasons and the endless cycle of life and death that made ranching more than just a business. I put my phone away and smiled for the first time in weeks. They had no idea what they were about to lose. I started carrying a camera everywhere. Not obviously just my phone like anyone else, but I documented everything. Every shortcut Caden took, every safety protocol Gavin ignored, every maintenance issue they brushed off as not cost-effective. The first week of their management, they skipped the quarterly hoof trimming. Waste of money, Gavin declared. Cattle have been walking around for thousands of years without pedicures. I took photos of the limping cows. The second week, they decided the water tank maintenance could wait. It's still holding water, Caden said when I pointed out the rust eating through the bottom. We'll fix it when it actually breaks. I documented the contaminated water, the sick cattle, the vet bills that followed. By the 3rd week, I had a folder on my phone labeled Evidence with over 200 photos and videos. Brinley, come here, Caden called from the equipment shed. I found him standing next to our best tractor with Khalil, our longtime contractor. Khalil looked furious. What's the problem? I asked. Khalil here thinks we need to replace the hydraulic lines, Caden said. I think he's trying to pad his bill. Khalil shook his head. Those lines are cracked. One of them blows while someone's operating this thing. They could get killed. They look fine to me, Gavin said, walking up behind us. A little wear and tear never hurt anyone. A little wear and tear? Khalil's voice rose. Man, I've been working on farm equipment for 20 years. This is dangerous. Then don't use it, Gavin shrugged. We'll find someone who will. Khalil looked at me. Brinley, you know I'm right. I did know. I'd been telling them about those lines for 2 weeks, but I wasn't in charge anymore. It's not my call, I said quietly. Khalil stared at me for a long moment, then started packing up his tools. I'm done. I won't be responsible for someone getting hurt because you people are too cheap to maintain your equipment. Fine, Gavin said. We'll find someone else. After Khalil left, I took pictures of the cracked hydraulic lines. Then I added his contact information to my phone. He'd make a good witness if needed. That afternoon, Mom cornered me in the kitchen. You need to stop undermining Caden. I haven't said a word. You don't have to. Your attitude says everything. She slammed a coffee mug down on the counter. This family has traditions, Brinley. The ranch goes to the son. That's how it's always been. Even if the son doesn't know what he's doing, he'll learn, and Gavin is helping him. I laughed, couldn't help it. Gavin? Mom, he tried to feed alfalfa to cattle yesterday. Alfalfa. Do you know what that could have done to them? I don't care about the details. I care about this family's reputation. What reputation? We're going to be the laughingstock of the county in 6 months. Her face went red. You're jealous. You always have been. Just because you're the oldest doesn't mean you deserve. I deserve what I earned, I snapped. 20 years, Mom. 20 years of my life. And now it's time for you to step aside and let the men handle things. The men. I wanted to scream. Instead, I walked outside and found Krista by the horse corral. She was brushing down our old mare, Stella. They're going to sell her, Krista said without looking up. What? Stella. Gavin says keeping horses is a waste of resources. This isn't a petting zoo, he said. Stella was 32 years old. Dad had bought her as a filly, and she'd been part of our family longer than Caden had been alive. She was gentle as a lamb, perfect for teaching kids to ride. Where would she go? Wherever they can get the best price, I guess. I pulled out my phone and started recording. Tell me again what Gavin said. Krista looked confused but repeated it. I saved the video and sent it to myself via email just to be safe. That evening, my phone buzzed with a text from Krista. Emergency family meeting. Mom's office. Now. I found them all there. Mom behind Dad's old desk, Caden and Gavin in chairs like they were running a board meeting. Sit down, Mom said. I remained standing. What's this about? We've made a decision, Caden said, trying to sound authoritative. We're subdividing the South 40, the creek bottom, and the hill pasture. Gavin found a buyer. A resort developer, Gavin added proudly. They're offering way above market value. It's a no-brainer. You can't sell those parcels, I said. Actually, we can, Mom said. The will gives Caden full authority over ranch operations. What about family consent? Caden is the head of this family now, Mom replied. The funeral was a blur of casseroles and condolences, but I remember every word of what happened after. We'd barely gotten the last mourner out the door when Mom called us into the living room. Caden had driven down from Denver that morning, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else in his expensive suit and polished shoes. Sit down, both of you, Mom said, her voice carrying that tone she used when she meant business. She was holding a manila folder, and my stomach dropped. Your father's will was very clear about his wishes, she continued, not meeting my eyes. The ranch goes to Caden, as is proper, as is tradition. The words hit me like a physical blow. What? Caden straightened up, suddenly interested. Mom, are you sure? His consent is all that matters. I looked at Krista. She was staring at her hands, saying nothing. The paperwork's already drawn up, Gavin said. We close next Friday. Next Friday. 7 days. Any objections? Caden asked like he was doing me a favor by asking. None at all, I said. Congratulations. They looked surprised by my calm response. They expected me to fight, to argue, to make a scene. Instead, I walked out of the office and straight to my truck. I had a phone call to make. Cynthia answered on the second ring. Brinley, it's late. They're selling 3 parcels next Friday. A pause. Without unanimous family consent? Mom says Caden's consent is all that matters. Well, Cynthia said, and I could hear the smile in her voice. I guess we'll see about that. I couldn't sleep that night, so I drove out to the old cemetery where Grandpa Archie was buried. The headstone was simple granite, just his name and dates, but I could still hear his voice like he was sitting right next to me. You remember what I told you, little bird? He'd said that day in Cynthia's office 15 years ago. I was 23, fresh out of college with my agronomy degree, and he was already sick with the cancer that would take him 2 years later. Tell me again, Grandpa. Family's supposed to protect each other, but sometimes family's the one you need protecting from. He'd been right. Even then, he'd seen what Mom was planning, how she'd always favored Caden despite his complete lack of interest in the ranch. "Your daddy's a good man," Grandpa had continued, "but he's weak when it comes to your mother. He'll promise you the world, but when push comes to shove, he'll do what she tells him." So what do? We make sure the land stays with someone who loves it, someone who'll fight for it. That's when we'd drawn up the trust. Every detail, every safeguard, every trigger that would transfer ownership if the ranch was mismanaged or sold off piecemeal. Grandpa had been thorough, and I'd been young enough to think we'd never need it. Now, sitting by his grave in the dark, I whispered, "I hope you knew what you were doing, old man." The next morning, I found Mom in the kitchen making coffee. She looked tired, older than her 61 years. "We need to talk," I said. "If this is about the land sale, it's about Dad." She froze, coffee pot halfway to her cup. "What about him?" "He promised me this place. You know he did." "Your father promised a lot of things he couldn't deliver." "Because you wouldn't let him." She set the pot down hard. "Your father was a dreamer, Brinley. Someone had to be practical." "Practical? Is that what you call giving the ranch to someone who doesn't want it?" "Caden will grow into it." "Will he?" "Because right now he's about to sell off a third of our land to build a resort." Mom's face went pale. He wouldn't." "Ask him yourself." She did. That afternoon, I heard them arguing in Dad's old office. Mom's voice was shrill, panicked. Caden's was defensive, whiny. "It's just business, Mom. We need the money. This land has been in our family for over a century, and now it's going to help secure our future. Gavin says, I don't care what Gavin says, he's not family. He's helping us modernize. You said you wanted the ranch to be profitable." "Not like this." Their voices carried through the thin walls. I was in the living room pretending to read, but really listening to everything. "The contracts are already signed," Caden said. "It's too late to back out now." "Then unsign them." "I can't. There's a penalty clause. We'd lose everything." Mom went quiet for a long moment. Then, "How much money do we owe?" "Between the medical bills, the funeral costs, and the ranch debts, about 200,000. "Jesus Christ." "The land sale will cover all of it, plus give us operating capital for next year." "And what happens when that money runs out?" "We'll figure something out." That evening, Krista found me in the barn. "Did you hear them fighting?" "Hard not to." "Mom's freaking out. She's been calling relatives all afternoon trying to borrow money to stop the sale." "Any luck?" "Uncle Pete hung up on her. Aunt Sarah says she's got her own problems." I wasn't surprised. Mom had burned a lot of bridges over the years with her pride and her sharp tongue. "There's something else," Krista said. "Gavin's been making other calls. I think he's lining up more buyers." "For what?" "Everything. The equipment, the cattle, maybe even the house." My blood went cold. "He can't sell the house." "He can if Caden agrees to it." That night we had what Mom called a family dinner. It was more like a funeral. Mom picked at her food. Caden looked guilty, and Gavin kept checking his phone. "So," Mom said finally, "I've been thinking about the land sale." "It's happening," Caden said quickly. "The contracts are signed." "I know, but maybe we should think about what comes next." Gavin looked up from his phone. "Actually, I've been working on that. I've got some ideas about monetizing the remaining assets." "English, please," Krista said. "We sell everything, the cattle, the equipment, the house. Use the money to buy into a real estate development company I know in Denver." The silence that followed was deafening. "You want to sell the house?" Mom's voice was barely a whisper. "It's just sitting here depreciating. In Denver, that money could be working for us. This is our home. It's an asset, Gavin said, and assets should generate income. I looked at Caden. Is this what you want? He wouldn't meet my eyes. I don't know. Maybe. I never planned to live here forever. Where would Mom go? She could get a nice condo in town, something easier to maintain. Mom stood up abruptly and left the room. A few minutes later, I heard her bedroom door slam. That went well, Krista muttered. She'll come around, Gavin said. Change is hard, but sometimes it's necessary. I excused myself and went to my room. I had emails to send, documents to review, and a phone call to make to Cynthia. The land sale was happening Friday, but by Monday everything would change. They just didn't know it yet. Friday morning, I sat in my truck outside the title company, watching Caden and Gavin walk in with their briefcases and confident smiles. They had no idea I was there, no idea what was about to happen. My phone buzzed. A text from Cynthia. Documents filed. Trust invocation is official as of 9 a.m. Congratulations. I stared at the message for a long moment, then deleted it. Inside that building, my brother was signing away his birthright. Outside, I was taking it back. The irony wasn't lost on me. An hour later, they came out laughing. Gavin was on his phone, probably calling his developer friends. Caden looked relieved, like he'd just solved all his problems. I followed them home, staying far enough back that they wouldn't notice. When I pulled into the driveway, I could hear them celebrating in the kitchen. $3.2 million, Gavin was saying. Not bad for morning's work. I can't believe it was that easy, Caden replied. Why didn't Dad ever think of this? Your dad was old school, Mom said. She sounded tired but pleased. He thought land was something you held on to, not something you sold. Well, his way was keeping us broke, Gavin said. This way, we're set for life. I walked in through the back door. Brinley's been the decision is made, Mom cut him off. A ranch needs a man to run it. That's how it's always been in this family. I found my voice. Dad promised me, he said. Your father said a lot of things. Mom's eyes were cold as winter, but when it came time to put pen to paper, he did what was right, what was necessary. My hands were shaking. 20 years. 20 years of 16-hour days, of missing dates and friendships and any chance at a normal life because this place needed me, because I thought it was mine. I don't even want it, Caden said, and I wanted to hit him. I've got my consulting business, my life in the city. You'll learn, Mom said firmly. It's your birthright. That's when Caden's friend Gavin walked in like he owned the place. They were all sitting around the kitchen table with champagne glasses and a bottle of cheap sparkling wine. Brinley, Caden called out. Come celebrate with us. We just made enough money to save the ranch. By selling the ranch, I said. By selling part of it, he corrected. The part that wasn't making us any money anyway. Gavin poured me a glass. You should be thanking us. This secures everyone's future. I took the glass but didn't drink. Whose future exactly? All of ours, Mom said. The family's. What family? You kicked me out of the decision-making, remember? You're still part of this family, Caden said. You'll always have a place here. As what? A hired hand? As my sister. The word hung in the air between us. Sister. Like that meant something after what they'd done. Krista walked in from the living room looking uncomfortable. What's all the noise about? We sold the parcels, Mom announced. $3.2 million. Krista's face went white. You actually did it. Best decision we ever made, Gavin said, raising his glass. 2 new beginnings. They all toasted except for Krista and me. We just stood there, watching them celebrate the destruction of everything our family had built. So what's next? Krista asked quietly. Well, Gavin said, pulling out his phone, I've got some calls to make. The cattle market's hot right now, and I think we can get premium prices if we move fast. You're selling the cattle too? Not all of them, just the ones that aren't cost-effective to keep. Which ones are those? Gavin scrolled through his phone. The older cows, the ones with health issues, anything that's not producing at optimal levels. Those are our breeding stock, I said, the foundation of the herd. They're overhead, Gavin corrected, dead weight. They're the genetic base we've been building for 30 years. And now they're going to be someone else's problem. I set down my untouched champagne. I need some air. Outside, I called Cynthia. How long before they get the notice? Should be any minute now. I sent it certified mail to your mother, and I'm having a process server deliver copies to Caden and Gavin. And there's no way they can fight it? Not a chance. The trust is ironclad, and they violated multiple terms. The land sale without unanimous family consent was the final trigger. What about the money from the sale? Goes into escrow until the ownership transfer is complete, then it comes to you. I hung up and walked back toward the house. Through the kitchen window, I could see them still celebrating, still planning their bright future with money that would never be theirs. My phone rang. Krista. Where are you? She whispered. Outside. Why? There's a man at the door. He says he has legal documents for Caden and Gavin. I'll be right there. I walked in through the front door just as the process server was handing over the papers. Caden was reading them, his face getting paler by the second. What is it? Mom asked. I don't understand, Caden said. This says the ranch ownership is being transferred to Brindley. What? Gavin grabbed the papers. That's impossible. You own the ranch. Apparently not, Caden said, sinking into a chair. Mom snatched the documents. This is some kind of mistake, some legal technicality. It's not a mistake, I said from the doorway. They all turned to look at me. The celebration was over. What did you do? Mom's voice was deadly quiet. I didn't do anything. You did it to yourselves. What are you talking about? I smiled. Maybe you should read the fine print. The kitchen erupted like a bomb had gone off. You scheming little bitch! Mom screamed, throwing the papers at me. What have you done? I protected our family's legacy, I said calmly, picking up the scattered documents. Something you should have done. Caden was frantically reading through the legal papers. This says there was a trust, a land trust established 15 years ago. That's impossible, Gavin said, grabbing the papers from him. We would have known about a trust. Would you? I asked. Did you bother reading Dad's will completely? Did you check the property records? Did you do any due diligence at all? You can't do this, Mom said, her voice shaking with rage. This is fraud. This is legal, I interrupted. Completely legal. Grandpa Archie and I set up an irrevocable trust 15 years ago. The ranch would transfer to me automatically if certain conditions were violated. What conditions? Caden asked. I pulled out my phone and started reading from my notes. No subdivision or sale of parcels without unanimous family consent. No overgrazing beyond sustainable levels. Proper maintenance of all structures and equipment. No disposal of breeding stock without environmental impact assessment. We didn't know about any of that, Gavin protested. Ignorance isn't a defense. You violated every single condition multiple times over the past month. This is insane, Mom said. You're destroying this family over a piece of paper. I'm saving this family. You were going to sell everything and move to Denver. That was just an idea. It was a plan. Gavin's been lining up buyers for the cattle, the equipment, even this house. Krista spoke up from the corner where she'd been quietly watching. Is that true, Caden? Caden looked at Gavin, then back at her. We were exploring options. You were liquidating our heritage, I said. Turning a century of family history into a real estate investment? At least we were thinking about the future, Gavin snapped. You're stuck in the past. The past is what built this place. The past is what you were about to destroy. Mom was pacing now, her face red with fury. There has to be a way to fight this. Lawyers, appeals. There's nothing to fight, I said. The trust is ironclad. Cynthia made sure of that. Cynthia. Mom stopped pacing. Cynthia was in on this? She's been my lawyer for 15 years. She helped Grandpa and me set everything up. You've been planning this since you were 23? Caden's voice was barely a whisper. I've been protecting this ranch since I was 23. There's a difference. You let us think we owned it. You let us make plans, sign contracts. You did own it until you proved you couldn't be trusted with it. Gavin was frantically typing on his phone. I'm calling my lawyer. This can't be legal. Go ahead, I said. Call whoever you want. The documents are filed, the trust is activated, and the ownership transfer is complete. What about the money from the land sale? Mom demanded. Goes into escrow until the transfer is finalized. Then it comes to me. That's our money. It's the ranch's money, and I'm the ranch now. Caden stood up suddenly, his chair scraping against the floor. You planned this. You watched us struggle, watched us make mistakes, and you did nothing to help because you wanted us to fail. I tried to help. You ignored every piece of advice I gave you because you were undermining us. I was trying to save you from yourselves by stealing our inheritance, by taking back what was always mine. The words hung in the air like a slap. Everyone went quiet. Always yours? Mom's voice was dangerous. This ranch belonged to your father, then it belonged to Caden. It was never yours. I've worked this land for 20 years. Tall, soft-looking guy in designer jeans who'd never worked a day outside in his life. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt, Gavin said, not looking sorry at all. Just wanted to let you know I've been looking at the books, Caden. There's definitely some opportunities here for optimization. Optimization, like our ranch was some corporate merger. Gavin's going to help me modernize things, Caden explained. Bring some business sense to the operation. I stared at them both. You don't know the first thing about running a ranch? That's what consultants are for, Gavin said with a smirk. Sometimes an outside perspective is exactly what a struggling business needs. Struggling. I've bled for it, sacrificed for it, built it into something profitable and sustainable. If that doesn't make it mine, then what does? Being born male, Krista said quietly. We all turned to look at her. She was standing by the window, arms crossed, looking older than her 31 years. That's what this is really about, isn't it? She continued. Brindley could have been the perfect rancher, the perfect heir, but she was born with the wrong equipment. That's not, Mom started. It is exactly that, Krista cut her off. You gave everything to Caden because he's a man, even though he never wanted it and doesn't know how to do it. Tradition? Tradition is bullshit, Mom. And now it's cost us everything. Gavin was still on his phone, but I could tell from his expression that his lawyer wasn't giving him good news. There has to be something, he said desperately. Some loophole, some way to challenge this. There isn't, I said. Grandpa Archie was thorough. He knew exactly what he was doing. So did you, Caden said. You played us. You let us think we were in control while you pulled the strings. I gave you every chance to succeed. You chose to fail. We chose to trust you. No, you chose to ignore me. There's a difference. Mom suddenly lunged forward, grabbing my arm. You have to stop this. You're tearing this family apart. I looked down at her hand on my arm, then up at her face. I'm not tearing anything apart, Mom. I'm just picking up the pieces of what you already broke. I pulled free and headed for the door. You have 30 days to vacate the premises. That's more than legally required, but I'm feeling generous. Brinley, wait, Krista called. I turned back. What? What about me? Where do I fit in all this? That's up to you. You can stay and help me run the ranch properly, or you can leave with them. And if I stay, then you'll be my partner, equal say in all decisions. Mom laughed bitterly. Partner, like she was ever going to be your father's partner. I'm not Dad, I said, and this isn't his ranch anymore. It's mine. 2 weeks later, I stood on the front porch watching Caden load his BMW with the last of his belongings. The expensive suits, the designer shoes, the business books that had never taught him how to read cattle or weather, or the subtle signs that meant the difference between profit and loss. You don't have to do this, he said, not looking at me as he slammed the trunk shut. It's already done. I mean, kick us out. We could work something out. I could stay on, learn the business properly this time. I almost laughed. Like you learned it the first time? I made mistakes. I admit that. But I'm still your brother. Are you? Because brothers don't usually try to sell their sister's life work out from under her. He finally looked at me then, and I saw something I'd never seen in his face before. Genuine regret. I didn't know how much this place meant to you. 20 years, Caden. 20 years of watching you live your life in the city while I held this place together, and you didn't know? I thought you were just helping out. Helping out? I shook my head. I was running this ranch while you were playing businessman in Denver. I was the one who saved us from bankruptcy, twice. I know that now. Now doesn't matter. You had your chance. Gavin came out of the house carrying a box of his things. He'd been quiet since his lawyer confirmed there was no way to challenge the trust. The fight had gone out of him completely. Cars loaded, he told Caden. We should go. Where will you go? I asked. Back to Denver, Caden said. Gavin's got some connections there. Maybe I can get back into consulting. What about Mom? She's staying with Aunt Sarah for now, says she can't bear to look at this place anymore. Mom had left 3 days ago without saying goodbye to me, just packed her bags and drove away in her old Buick, leaving behind 40 years of memories and a daughter she could no longer stand to face. She'll come around, Caden said, but he didn't sound convinced. No, she won't, and that's fine. I don't need her approval anymore. Gavin was already in the passenger seat staring at his phone. He'd been trying to salvage his reputation with his Denver contacts, but word had gotten out about the ranch debacle. His consulting career was probably over. I'm sorry, Caden said suddenly. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. Sorry for what? For taking what wasn't yours? For trying to destroy everything I built? For treating me like hired help in my own home? For all of it. I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw the little boy who used to follow me around the ranch, asking endless questions about the cattle and the land, before Mom convinced him that ranching was beneath him, before he decided that city life was more important than family legacy. You know what the worst part is? I said. You could have been good at this. If you'd actually tried, if you'd listened, if you'd cared about anything other than the money. I know. But you didn't. You took the easy way out, just like you always do. He nodded, not arguing. Can I ask you something? What? Did you ever love me? As a brother, I mean. Or was this always the plan? The question hit me harder than I expected. I loved the brother you used to be, before you became someone who could look me in the eye and tell me I didn't deserve what I'd worked for. And now? Now I don't know who you are anymore? He got in his car without another word. I watched them drive away, the BMW disappearing down the dirt road that led to the highway. 20 minutes later, Krista found me still standing on the porch. They're gone, she said. Yeah, How do you feel? I thought about it. Empty, relieved, angry, sad, all at the same time. That's normal, I think, after something like this. Is it? I don't know what normal is anymore. Krista sat down on the porch steps. I've been thinking about your offer, about staying on as your partner. And I want to do it, but I need to know something first. What's that? Are you going to become like Mom, all bitter and controlling, pushing people away when they don't do exactly what you want? The question stung because I've been wondering the same thing. I don't know. I hope not. Because I won't work for someone like that, partner or not. I understand. Good. Because this place needs both of us if it's going to survive. She was right. The ranch was mine now, but it was too big for one person to handle alone. I needed help, needed someone I could trust. Equal partners? I asked. Equal partners. We shook hands on it, sitting there on the porch of the house that had been in our family for over a century. The house that was finally, truly mine. But as I looked out over the land I'd fought so hard to keep, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd won the war but lost something else in the process. Something I might never get back. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. This isn't over. You'll regret what you've done. I showed it to Krista. She frowned. Mom? Probably. Or maybe Gavin. What are you going to do? I deleted the message and put my phone away. Nothing. Let them threaten. They have no power here anymore. But even as I said it, I wondered if I was wrong, if the real fight was just beginning. The fire started at 3 a.m. I woke to the smell of smoke and the sound of Krista pounding on my bedroom door. Brinley! This place that I'd bled for, that I'd saved from bankruptcy twice, that I'd built into something sustainable and profitable, struggling. Mom slid the transfer papers across the coffee table. Sign here, Brinley. Make this official. My sister Krista appeared in the doorway, her face pale. She'd been listening from the kitchen. Our eyes met, and I saw the same shock and anger I was feeling. This isn't right, Krista whispered. This is how it has to be, Mom said without turning around. Sign the papers, Brinley. You can stay on as a hand if you want. Caden will need the help. A hand on my own ranch, working for my little brother who couldn't tell a bull from a steer. I picked up the pen. The barn's on fire. I threw on clothes and ran outside. Orange flames were licking up the side of the old hay barn, the one where we stored the winter feed. In the distance, I could hear sirens. Did you call 911? I shouted over the roar of the fire. First thing I did, Krista yelled back. The fire department's on their way. We grabbed hoses and started spraying water, but it was too late. The barn was fully engulfed. All we could do was wet down the surrounding buildings and hope the fire didn't spread. The volunteer fire department arrived 20 minutes later, but by then the barn was a total loss. Chief Martinez found us sitting on the porch steps covered in soot and ash. Anyone hurt? He asked. No, we're fine, I said. Just lost the barn and about 50 tons of hay. Any idea how it started? I looked at Krista. We were both thinking the same thing. Could have been anything. Electrical, spontaneous combustion, careless cigarette. Or arson, Martinez said quietly. We'll investigate, but I wanted you to know we found tire tracks by the back fence, fresh ones. What kind of vehicle? Sedan, probably, not a truck or SUV. A sedan, like Mom's Buick or Caden's BMW. We'll dust for prints, check for accelerants, Martinez continued, but between you and me, this looks deliberate. After the fire department left, Krista and I sat in the kitchen drinking coffee and staring at the insurance paperwork. The barn was covered, but barely. It would take months to rebuild, and we'd lost most of our winter feed. This was them, wasn't it? Krista said. Probably. So what do we do? Before I could answer, headlights swept across the kitchen window. A car was coming up the driveway at 4:30 in the morning. I grabbed the shotgun from the closet and went to the front door. Krista was right behind me with a baseball bat. The car stopped in front of the house. The engine shut off and a figure got out. In the porch light, I could see it was Mom. "Put the gun down, Brinley," she called out. "I'm not here to fight." "Then why are you here?" She walked slowly toward the porch, her hands visible. "I came to confess." "To what?" "To setting the fire," Krista gasped. I kept the shotgun pointed at the ground, but ready. "Why?" I asked. "Because I was angry. Because I wanted to hurt you the way you hurt me." "So you tried to burn down our ranch?" "I tried to burn down your barn. I didn't want to hurt anyone, just make you pay." "For what? For taking back what was mine?" Mom stopped at the bottom of the porch steps. In the harsh light, she looked older, smaller, defeated. For being right, for being better than Caden, for making me face the truth about what I'd done, which is that I gave everything to my son because he was my son, not because he deserved it, that I ignored my daughter who actually earned it, that I destroyed this family because I was too proud to admit I was wrong. The words hung in the air between us. I'd waited 20 years to hear them. "I called the police on my way here," Mom continued. "Told them I set the fire. They're probably on their way." "Mom," Krista said softly, "you don't have to." "Yes, I do. I have to face what I've done." Sirens wailed in the distance, getting closer. Mom sat down on the porch steps and put her head in her hands. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry for all of it." I leaned the shotgun against the wall and sat down beside her. "I know. Can you forgive me?" I looked out at the smoldering ruins of the barn, at the land I'd fought so hard to keep, at the family I'd had to destroy to save it. "I don't know," I said honestly. "Maybe someday." The police cars pulled into the driveway. Mom stood up and walked toward them, her hands already raised. "Esther Shepherd," she said to the first officer, "I'm here to turn myself in for arson." They arrested her quietly, professionally. No drama, no resistance. Just an old woman finally accepting the consequences of her choices. After they left, Krista and I sat in the pre-dawn darkness, watching the last wisps of smoke rise from the barn. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now we rebuild. The barn, the business, maybe even the family, if there's anything left to rebuild." "And if there isn't?" I looked at her, my sister who'd chosen to stay when everyone else had left. "Then we build something new." The sun was coming up, painting the sky pink and gold over the land that was finally, truly mine. It wasn't the victory I'd imagined, but it was the one I'd earned. And for the first time in 20 years, that felt like enough. My hand was steady now, steady as it had been every morning for 20 years when I'd gotten up before dawn to check the cattle. Steady as it had been when I'd delivered calves in the middle of blizzards, when I'd negotiated with feed suppliers and veterinarians and bank loan officers. I signed my name on every line Mom pointed to. "There," I said, setting the pen down. "All yours, Caden. Congratulations." He had the grace to look uncomfortable. "Brinley, I hope we can—" "I'm sure you'll do just fine," I said, standing up. "You and Gavin have it all figured out." I walked out of that room, past Krista, who was crying quietly, past the family photos on the mantel showing 4 generations of shepherds who'd worked this land, past everything I thought was mine. But here's the thing nobody knew, the thing I'd kept secret for 15 years. Grandpa Archie and I had made our own plans, plans that went way deeper than any will Mom thought she understood. They had no idea what was coming. 3 weeks later, I watched Caden and Gavin tear apart everything I'd built. "We need to maximize efficiency," Gavin announced at breakfast, waving around a tablet like it was the Holy Grail. These grazing rotations are way too conservative. We can double the cattle per acre. I looked up from my coffee. That'll destroy the grassland in 2 seasons. See, this is exactly the kind of outdated thinking that's been holding this place back, Gavin said. Modern ranching is about optimization, not tradition. Caden nodded along like a bobblehead. Gavin's got an MBA, Brinley. He knows what he's talking about. An MBA in what? Cattle management? Soil science? Business, Gavin said smugly, which is what this is, a business. I bit my tongue and went back to my eggs. Mom walked in, already dressed for town. Brinley, I need you to help the men today, she said, not looking at me. They're moving the herd to the north pasture. The north pasture isn't ready, I said. It needs another month of rest. Gavin says it's fine, Mom replied, and he's the manager now. Manager, not even owner, manager. Caden couldn't even be bothered to pretend he was running things himself. Mom, that pasture, enough! Her voice cut like a blade. You work for Caden now. Do what you're told or find somewhere else to live. The threat hung in the air like smoke. 20 years of my life, and now I was one complaint away from being homeless. Understood, I said quietly. After they left, Krista slipped into the kitchen. This is insane, she whispered. They're going to ruin everything. Probably. So what are you going to do? I finished my coffee and stood up. What I'm told, apparently. But that afternoon, while Caden and Gavin were moving cattle to the north pasture against my advice, I drove into town. I had an appointment. Cynthia's law office was in the same building where Grandpa Archie and I had met 15 years ago. She was waiting for me with a thick file folder. I heard about the will, she said, closing the door behind me.